Right from antiquity, collaborative discussions and constructive debates have remained the cornerstone of human understanding. From this fundamental necessity comes this endeavor of ours.
The flags are flying, the balloons are ready for release. It's a great day, one we've been planning and waiting for. Ladies and gentlemen, we offer you a warm welcome to the HR Conclave 2018 of the Vinod Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur, in association with ICICI Bank. I'm Shubham Paul.
And I'm Pratna Roy, your host for the event.
This gathering seeks to bring together some of the brightest minds of the corporate world to ideate and explore new avenues in the world of human resources management. Today's meet is a clarion call to dive deep into the new realities of human resource management and promises to leave the audience with a great deal of learnings.
Indeed, it is a brilliant opportunity for the aspiring business managers seated here to learn from some of the most accomplished corporate leaders having an astute sense of human relations. Before we begin the highly anticipated panel discussion, we take this opportunity to welcome our honorable guests who have been kind enough to spare time off their schedules and grace this occasion with their august presence. So, without any further delay, we would like to call upon stage Professor B.N. Singh, Dean of Human Resource Development, IIT Kharagpur.
No one has got him. Don't move, don't move. We are not supposed to move.
Mr. Singh has more than 25 years of teaching and research experience in institutes of national importance. His expertise lies in the area of aerospace composite structures and is also a leading researcher in the field of uncertainty quantifications. An eminent fellow of Indian Society for Technical Education India and an elected fellow for the Institute of Engineers, it is indeed a privilege for us to have you here. Welcome, sir.
Moving forward, we take immense pleasure in inviting on stage the keynote speaker of the HR Conclave 2018, Mr. Ranjan Kumar Mohapatra, Director HR at Indian Oil Corporation Limited and Chairman at Lanka IOC. Mr. Mohapatra is at the zenith of HR management in an organization that needs no introduction. At Indian Oil, also known as the Energy of India, he has proved to be a symbol of upliftment, stewardship over 30 years now, banking on his acumen and exhaustive knowledge in supply chain and logistics. He has pulled off challenging acts not just across India, but also beyond its borders. On behalf of the entire VGSoM family, we extend a hearty welcome to you, sir.
We now call on stage our beloved Dean, Dr. Praveena Rajiv. A finance enthusiast, Dr. Praveena is an alumnus of the Vinod Gupta School of Management. She completed both her master's and doctorate from this institution. She has seen the school grow over the years, and the Vinod Gupta School of Management certainly looks forward to her directions as it strives to make a bigger impact in the coming days.
Taking things forward, we now request Professor Gautam Sinha, an esteemed faculty of the Vinod Gupta School of Management, to please come on stage. Dr. Sinha is one of those rare breed of professionals who have made a successful crossover from the corporate world to the world of academics. An outstanding teacher in his own right, he has won the Best Teacher in Operations Management at the Best B Schools of Asia Awards, Singapore 2011.
Finally, we welcome on stage our very own Dr. Abhijit Chandra. Dr. Chandra is the faculty of the finance discipline and is also the faculty in charge of the corporate and media interaction cell of VGSoM. Popular among his students for his witty lines, Professor Chandra is one of the most supportive faculty in the VGSoM fraternity, giving his valuable guidance in all our aspirations. We would now kindly request Professor Gautam Sinha to honor our chief guest, Professor B.N. Singh.
So you can have a seat. Now, we would like to invite Dr. Prabina Rajiv to felicitate our keynote speaker, Mr. Ranjan Kumar Mohapatra. Ladies and gentlemen, light and brightness have always been equated as symbols of hope and positivity. Hence, to start this occasion on an auspicious note, we request our esteemed dignitaries to kindly join us in the lighting of the lamp. Thank you, respected dignitaries, for inaugurating the event.
It's now our great pleasure to invite our chief guest, Professor B.N. Singh, to address the inquisitive future leaders assembled here.
So, very good morning to all of you. Respected dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, my faculty colleagues, my dear participants, students, staff, ladies and gentlemen, the members of the media, on my own behalf and the behalf of the Institute, I welcome you all in HR Conclave 2018. The director of this institute, Professor Patha Pratim Chakravarti, loves to attend this kind of function. He is out of country. The deputy director of the institute is also out of the station. So now I am a Dean HR. Professor Pavina Rajiv has invited me as a chief guest of the function. I requested several times, so I thought that in absence of director and deputy director, I must be there. So I am thankful to the Dean VGSoM for inviting me for this kind of function. Basically, I am holding up a Dean HR position, Dean Human Resource at IIT Kharagpur. In fact, there are 3 Dean HR in the institute. The one is called Dean Faculty Affairs, who looks after faculty manpower. There is a Dean of Student Affairs, looks after students. And basically, I am a Dean HR, looking upon non-teaching faculty, all the officers, staff, etc. So, but now I am fortunate that the HR word has been added with my position. So now I understand that I am looking after all the human resources at IIT Kharagpur. Now, every organization, HR is a very important asset. There is no doubt about that. Without the human resources, it is not possible to achieve a greater height of academic excellence of an institute of a national importance. Now, I personally feel that now every institute like IIT Kharagpur have its own vision, mission, academic goals. We have made strategic planning, the roadmap, the action plan with timelines and milestones to achieve a further greater height of academic excellence. But this all exercise may not be the fruitful and may not be the without support of the human resource. So there should be a proper connect between the organization and the human resource. Otherwise, the whatever objective you set, whatever goals you set, it will not be possible to achieve that. So now, the trust and the transparency, these 2 keywords have been taken for this HR conclave, is very much now is a very much essential requirement between the organization and the human resource. Now the trust and transparency, what I understand as a Dean HR, develop confidence between the organization and the human resource to do better for the organization and to achieve the targets and the goals as specified by the organization. We as an institution Now, time to time, depending upon our needs and requirement, several goals and objectives are set to achieve in a stipulated time. I am very happy to inform that I am fortunate enough that I have been a core member, committee member of formulating all strategic planning, the roadmap, the action plan, the peer review of the institute, and that is why I understand that, and time to time we discuss and deliberate that there is a connect is required, because finally deliverable comes from the human resources, and at the top, sitting on the top, several policies, several goals, several objectives we can make on the paper, but if you want to that a right deliverable at right time, there should be a proper connect between the human resource and the organization. And that how somehow over the year we are missing that, and over the year we have achieved some connect and disconnect. So now as an organization, I am involved in the handling of the non-teaching, especially up to the officer level. And then I have tried my best that whatever policies, several policies we have made in last 2 years, we took it the apex body of the organization, we have discussed and deliberated, and finally come up with the several policies for the benefit of the human resource and employee staff of the organization. And then I found that some kind of trust has been developed over the year between the human resource and the top administration. And I can say at this point of time, earlier when I took over as a Dean HR, many issues were coming for resolving that, and nowadays because of transparency and the trust among the human resource and the top organization, now top administration of the organization, now very few cases are coming to that. Now the time has come that we have to develop a mechanism for a regular updation of the whatever the target institute is fixing, and that target how to achieve it, the complete roadmap and time action plan with the milestone must be shared with the each and every employee of this organization. The employees are very willing to contribute towards that, but many employees and the human resource, they don't know that how to we are going to contribute to the organization. So I would request this body to make a fruitful discussion and to develop a mechanism of a connect between the top organization, top administration of the organization, and as well as the human resource. So I am sure that will be the deliberations, discussions will take place in this conclave. This organization like IIT Kharagpur will be definitely be benefited out of that. And especially I will request the Dean, Vinod Gupta School of Management, Professor Pravina Rajiv, who has been very instrumental for organizing this and always she has shown a leadership quality. So I would request her that please come up with some ideas, some of the mechanism to systematize this mechanism so that there should be a full connect between the human resource and the top administration, and then the objective as set out by the top administration in the consultation with the stakeholders must be achieved in a time framework. And that with these words, few words, I once again I am thankful to the organizer for inviting me, and I am ending my this with the hope that the conclave will have a fruitful discussion and deliberation, and this I wish my all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for such an insightful speech. We couldn't have asked for a better way to set the tone for today's proceedings.
We would now request Dr. Prabina Rajeev, Dean of the Vinod Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur, to share her insightful thoughts with us.
A very good morning and warm welcome to all of you to this HR Conclave 2018 organized by Vinod Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur. Professor B.N. Singh, Dean Human Resource, IIT Kharagpur. Mr. Ranjan Mahapatra, Director HR IOCL and Chairman Lonka IOC. Professor Gautam Sinha and Professor Abhijit Chandra. And more importantly, distinguished guests sitting in the audience. Mr. Savin Hegde, accomplished public speaker and design thinking specialist. Mr. S.K. Bose, Executive Director HRD, Indian Oil. Mr. Arun Krishnamurthy, Director and HR Head HR Barclays. Dr. Anjan Bhaumik, Director HR, The Hershey's Company. Mr. Subhankar Roy Chaudhary, Executive Director and Head HR, Lenovo. Dr. Sujata Sudhindra, Head HR, Aditya Birla Finance Limited. Mr. Sandeep Tyagi, Director HR, Samsung Electronics. Colleagues and students of IIT Kharagpur. Today I take the opportunity to share few facts about VGSoM. In fact, 27 years ago, a path-breaking initiative was taken by distinguished alumnus Mr. Vinod Gupta, distinguished alumnus of IIT Kharagpur, Mr. Vinod Gupta, and the then director of IIT Kharagpur, Professor K.L. Chopra, to start a business school within the IIT ecosystem. And after the start of Vinod Gupta School of Management, many other B schools, many other IITs started our footstep, and most of the B schools within IIT systems now have most of the IITs have a B school within as a part of their program. Now, from a modest beginning of 16 students for the first batch of MBA, VGSoM has come a long distance. In its history of 25 years, VGSoM has expanded its activities significantly. We have 2-year full-time MBA program, which is our flagship program. We also offer executive MBA program to working professionals at IIT Kharagpur Extension Center at Kolkata. VGSoM also has a thriving research program where about 45 to 50 research students are pursuing their PhD program in various aspects of management domain. VGSoM also spearheads a very interesting and innovative program of IIT Kharagpur, which no other IIT has. That is the dual degree financial engineering program for the BTech students of IIT Kharagpur. Another interesting program offered by Vinod Gupta School of Management is the postgraduate diploma program in business analytics, which is jointly offered by IIM Calcutta, Indian Statistical Institute, and IIT Kharagpur, and VGSoM spearheads this particular program as part of the IIT Kharagpur. And all of us, we know today we have gathered here for second edition of HR Conclave. This HR Conclave was envisioned to facilitate the exchange of ideas and to deliberate on some challenging questions of the HR domain. With the success of the inaugural HR Conclave last year, it was befitting that this year this event aims to achieve something better. The same is reflected by the presence of such distinguished panel of speakers among us. The topic for this year HR Conclave is HR Today, Building Trust and Transparency for Organizational Structure. In fact, according to a recent survey by Interaction Association of Building Trust, 80% of the employees surveyed reported that they cannot effectively do their job if they do not trust their leaders, if they do not trust their organizations. So every company is striving to inculcate transparency as an institutional value. With this, I would like to end my brief talk. I would like to quote Stephen R. Covey's famous saying on this: trust is the highest form of human motivation. It brings out the best, very best in every people and in every organization. With this, I welcome each of you to HR Conclave 2018, and I'm very hopeful that today's deliberation, today's discussion is going to enlighten our path, specifically the young budding students who are sitting and listening to the distinguished guests from the industry, so that they imbibe trust and they imbibe transparency on the way they are going to lead their corporate life, so that they demand the trust, or they command the trust of their juniors and subordinates. With this, once again, I would like to thank all of you to come here, and thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. We are indeed grateful to you for your constant encouragement, guidance, and support.
Next, we would like to invite to the podium Professor Gautam Sinha to give us a glance at the events of the day and what's in store for everyone in the audience.
Good morning. I take this opportunity on behalf of Vinod Gupta School of Management to welcome our guests to this verdant campus of IIT Kharagpur and everyone in the audience for their presence in the second edition of the HR Conclave of VGSoM. We are very pleased to have such eminent leaders from the HR function across a span of industries and who have been so generous in agreeing to come together for what promises to be an absorbing discussion. I would personally like to welcome the panel members, and in no particular order. Mr. Ranjan Mahapatra, Director HR and Chairman Lanka IOC, Dr. Sujata Suchindran, Aditya Birla Finance, Mr. Arun Krishnamurthy, Head HR India of Barclays, Dr. Anjan Bhaumik, Director HR India, Europe and Middle East, Hershey, Mr. Sandeep Tyagi, Director HR Samsung, Mr. Shubhankar Roy Chaudhary, ED and Head HR APAC and Japan, Lenovo, Mr. S.K. Bose, EDHR IOCL, and of course our distinguished Dr. B.N. Singh, Dean HR. And last but not the least, the moderator, Mr. Saveen Hegde, design thinker and Toastmaster. The discussion that we are all looking forward to shall revolve around the crucial topics that are transforming the structure of businesses today. In keeping with IIT Kharagpur's legacy, we are trying to ignite the curious minds of our young citizens to rise up, to lead, and address such contemporary issues. The HR Conclave has been envisaged as a platform where a confluence of varied thought, ideas, and perspectives on people and people management. And this edition is designed to focus on the evolving role of human resource in the face of hyper-competition, disruption, and new possibilities. With the ushering in of the cliched VUCA world and the fourth industrial revolution, the work culture of corporates is evolving towards a more people-centric structure. All of this necessitates a nuanced treatment of the issues related to HR, and this HR Conclave is a tool to achieve this. While the last edition of the HR Conclave focused on HR in the face of disruption, this year we decided to go back to the roots and visit the building blocks: trust and transparency, and the role that they play in carving out success stories in organizations. Transparency and trust are the two sides of the same coin and is gaining value in corporate governance. The digital revolution makes sure that the activities around the length and breadth of our companies are visible down to the most granular level. Employees, if surveyed today, beyond the needs of the job security and career advancement, desire to be a part of the workplace that places emphasis on transparency. This congregation of seasoned industry experts in HR will collaboratively explore new dimensions of trust and transparency. Our students gather here. This is an opportunity for you to absorb the synergy of this confluence. Thank you, and wishing the discussions all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. This will definitely put some perspectives through to the audience sitting with eager anticipation.
Moving forward, we would now like to request our honorable keynote speaker, Mr. Ranjan Kumar Mohapatra, to deliver his much awaited keynote address.
Very good morning. I think last time when I was here, I heard a very louder good morning. So good morning once again. Thank you. I mean, it's good to be back here. I mean, within, I don't know, I mean, it's just 7-8 months and I'm back here. Back with the same people, I'm seeing the same faces, quite a lot of them. Of course, there are a lot of new faces as well. Who would not like to come back to a place like this? I mean, that's my question to myself. So, Professor B.N. Singh, Dean HR, Madam Professor Praveena Rajiv, Mr. Gautam Sinha, Mr. Abhijit Chandra, the esteemed panel members. I mean, in fact, I was seeing the list of panel members. I'm basically not a HR man. So you all are core HR. So that's why I'm a bit afraid. I don't know, whatever I say, how does it sound to you? My fellow colleagues from Indian Oil, faculties from VGSoM, and of course, the students. And the people, the group which is going to get the most out of this conclave. Because we will be talking about different things, but this is for you to grab what's the most you can, and to ask and to expose people to different questions and different queries, so that at least at the end of it, you are enlightened. So that should be the aim of this conclave. I am sure that must have been dwelling on Professor Rajiv's thought when she has gone for this second HR conclave. To start with, I must compliment VGSoM to have thought of such a conclave. I understand this is the second one, and within the second one, you have tried to touch a topic, trust and transparency, which is so key to any of our HR people. Not that. It is key to anybody who is in a corporate world. Not that. It is also very much key to anybody who is there. I mean, for any human being, it has its importance. Normally, if you look at these days newspapers, you come across a lot of things has happened. I would not like to quote that, which deals with trust, transparency, or to some extent on maybe data security and other things. This is what is hogging the limelight these days. You look around, you'll see many cases. That brings us back to the basics. That definitely this is not today that this issue is there, or these are the important points which has to be pondered on, but this was always there somewhere across the line. We have not been focusing on it. We had been focusing on something else. So that brings us to a very good topic. In fact, I must compliment the management of this HR conclave for having chosen this. I think Mr. Gautam Sinha just touched upon one thing. He was talking about corporate governance and the role of trust and transparency in corporate governance. That's important. You all have to really realize that the moment you are in the corporate field, these are the pillars which will help you to stand in good stead. And it would continue forever, because I'll come a bit into individually trust and transparency separately and combinedly, but with all my experiences, whatever little experiences that I have, and try to tell you how this would play that important role in your life. Friends, one thing, I mean, when we talk about, before going into anything, when we talk about it, the moment we speak about trust and transparency, transparency is one thing which comes to our mind, okay, by having a system, I can make my system, or I can make my, all the movements, everything transparent. So basically, I may have to work on the systems. So that's where we work on when we are talking about transparency. But how do I then make trust happen and create a culture of trust? Very difficult. And it can be created over the years, but it can go off. You have umpteen examples of how trust has been broken, how trust has been denied, how trust has been delayed. You have umpteen examples in the corporate world, in your life, in your own world, you have those cases. So we all know how this is where we have to work on. And most of you will be setting your steps into corporate world very soon, because I think last time when I met most of the students, they were in first year, they must have gone into the second year, and now very soon they will be getting into the corporate world. It becomes very important. It becomes very critical for each one of you. I will just quote one study from the Society of Human Resource Management, which says two things. I mean, I'm starting with that. Communication between employees and senior management, one. And employees' relationship with their immediate supervisor. These are the two most important aspects of employees' job satisfaction. I'm only starting with that. This talks about communication. This talks about relationship. And entire trust is built on that. Of course, another point we can also always bring in that, do we have organization which have created, this is a question which can come into each one of you. You think of an organization, suddenly it will come, okay, this organization is trustworthy. How that brand has been created. That brand has not been created overnight. That brand has not been created just by fluke. It is by the employees, it is by the management, it is by all the stakeholders who are there, through whom this particular culture of trust, or that trustworthiness, whatever you call it, has been created. And again, to repeat, it takes a hell lot of time. It takes a hell lot of effort. It takes a hell lot of concerted efforts. I mean, I'm not telling efforts only, definitely it has to be a concerted effort as well. I'll just quote one more. There are 5 strategies, CHROs, there is a Forbes study which says that 5 strategies CHROs, of course, I will come to that later, what role as human resource leaders we got to play to maintain this trust and transparency. But these are the 5 strategies CHROs should insist for their companies to pursue, so that there is a greater transparency, trust, and loyalty in the workplace. These are very simple mantras, simple strategies. I will just tell those 5. I'll try to enumerate. I thought that would be very interesting. Hire and engage employees with the right attitude. It's very simple. Who doesn't want to do it? Which company doesn't want to do it? I think my HR leaders who are sitting here, I mean, they have more focus. Would always be to to look for a person who has the right attitude for that particular post, for particular job, for particular company. But at the same time, we have to look at the people who have the right attitude to come into your corporate culture. Again, we really have to toil hard to do this, but this should be insisted by the HR leaders, CHROs, on their companies. At the same time, there is an anecdote to this as well, that when you are trying to get these people to assimilate into your system, we must also look for innovation. I am a bit of contradicting myself. You look for innovation. What does it mean? It means that you bring up people at your entry level who have not only have bright minds, but have different ideas. And ideas could be so different that it might give a new feel to your own culture as well. So this is number one, they say. The second one is encourage straight communication. You have to communicate, and have to communicate. And why straight communication? Straight communication is required because you don't want anything to get lost in the channel. As you know, I think most of you must have played this particular games, that you pass on a sentence to your friend and he passes on or she passes on, like that it continues. After the 20th person is over, it comes back to you. Very simple. It's lost. So we don't want that in any organization. And this needs to be practiced every day. If after I have taken over in my organization, I have been interacting with people. We know that Indian Oil is spread over total length and breadth of this country. We are there at Kargil, we are there at Leh, we are there at Madurai, or we are also at Sikkim and other places. We are also in the Kutch. But we have to meet, we have to have the management, the HR leaders have to have straight communication. So this is another point. Of course, this study is very recent, so it talks of one simple tool also, that use social media. I think this is something which if 10 years before any of us would have thought of, we would have thought, keep it aside. It cannot be. And now also, we talk about the boons and banes or flips and flops of social media all throughout. We do know about it. But any tool is as good as you use it. So this is for the leaders, CHROs, or the leaders, or the HR leaders. And in fact, it is true for anybody who is there at any leadership position to use this effectively. This has become a big tool. Most of this, I can tell in my own organization, we are a very, that way, old organization, now almost completing 60 years. Of course, I have many organizations sitting here who have completed 100. So 60 years in Free India. So my average age was hovering around 43, 44. Now the average has suddenly come down to 38, 37, 38. And I'm expecting in another year or two, I should be going back another 2-3 years down. Now I have youngsters who are joining at the age of 21, 22. So your system, your approach has to be in sync with that. We have a lot of millennials. We have to really meet that. So social media plays a very important role these days, and this is what Forbes talks of, that you please use social media to engage with your people. And of course, the second, one more point which comes up in that, when you engage with through social media, you are expecting a very forthright response. So that's where it is important, that how you use it. The next one is consider eliminating hierarchy. I'm a public sector, so we have a lot of hierarchies. We have at least E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, E7, E8, E9, E10. So we have a lot of hierarchies. Recently, we had one lecture by Professor Ramcharan, who was there. While discussing with him, we were just before the program was to start, we were discussing off-site, talking about many things. The one thing which I could gather, the best thing I could gather is that he says, cut layers. You have to cut layers. How do you cut it? You can't change this E1, E2, E3, E4, because these are all guidelines, DPE guidelines, other things which are there. I'm talking about my organization. But I can create a different hierarchy in a way that I cut layers. Can I have a direct interaction between E1 and E9 in some way, or with just one level? So this is where you can create. And of course, the most important part which Forbes says, create a forum for people to ask you questions. Ask questions on your leadership. Ask questions to leadership and on their leadership. So this is what is required. This needs to be done. So this, in effect, you are creating that environment in your organization where everybody is free to ask you. Of course, I'm basically not an HR man, in the sense I did not have HR background other than my degrees. So I have been a business man altogether. I have been in the field of business all throughout. So I have added one more, which I would like to give it to every HR leaders or HR persons. That is, please understand the business. If you do not understand the business, you will not be able to go any further. You need to understand the business. In fact, when we talk about it, all of us, our policies, our procedures, our interventions, whatever we want to do, has to be in sync with business. So for us, it's more important that we understand the business. So these are the 6 things which Forbes, 5 things Forbes told, and 1 thing I have added. So with that, I'll just give you one more thing. This David Hausager, CEO of Trust as Leadership Institute, he also says, he defines trust as 2 different things. A combination of 3 things. Please look around and you will look that even as a parent, it becomes applicable. Even as a brother or a sister, it becomes applicable. As a spouse, it becomes applicable. Of course, as a leader, it becomes applicable. 3 things: to do what is right, what is ethical. So when you promise ethics. Number 2, to deliver what is promised. Do promise what you can deliver, and do deliver what you have promised. 3rd, be consistent. Please deliver same thing at the same way at every point of time. Be consistent on that. Please look around. You will feel that this is what creates a trust. The moment any of this is gone, if your child, you deal with a child, of course, these youngsters will not be dealing, most of us will be dealing with our children. So if he sees that you are not consistent, the trust is broken. It happens to us, okay, with our brothers and sisters, this also keeps on happening. And you please promise what you can deliver. But once you have promised, do deliver that at whatever cost. So this is, and this becomes the basics for any trust to be developed, and this becomes basis for trust deficit which happens. I think I just thought we all know about trust and transparency, but there are quite a bit of linkage, as for me, through my experience, there quite a bit of link with certain things where it can be affected, it can be utilized. Recently, I communicate with my people through a communication which I call it Hridaya Se, that is from the heart, but the first HR, Hridaya Se, HR are capital, so it says human relationship, Hridaya Se. In that, this time I had touched upon one thing, so I thought taking this opportunity, I'll share it, that I have requested, I have told, I have advised all my people that you all are HR people. There is nothing called a designated person as an HR. Everybody is an HR because HR thrives on empathy. So empathy becomes the key word. As long as you are empathetic towards your subordinates, as long as you are empathetic towards your peers, or as long as you are empathetic even towards your boss, your HR is done. Your trust is created. You are at a level where you can communicate with your people, you can get your productivity, you can get your work done. But for that, you need to be empathetic. And that becomes the basis. In fact, if I take it further, empathy creates that trust which we all, as a management, as a top leader, we all expect that to be created in our organization. And then, of course, then we thought of that. What exactly is that? What exactly is that empathy? I have just written a few lines myself. I think not having unrealistic expectation is empathy. Helping each other in terms of crisis, in terms of stress, is empathy. Prompt service and a polite response is empathy. And viewing each other as a friend, as a colleague, or as a team member is empathy. So this becomes the base to me. This becomes the base on creating that trust between the team members, between a subordinate and a superior, between the peers. This becomes the base. I also have, most of the times it happens. I mean, I think when you people come to the corporate world, you will see most of the times it happens suddenly the leaders themselves or the superiors themselves start competing with the subordinates. This is very unhealthy. This happens, huh? This happens. We are supposed to mentor. We are supposed to handhold. We are supposed to take them forward. But we start competing with them. And this is where the trust is broken. We have, of course, in Indian Oil, we believe in trust because, see, the way we are spread, we have almost 50,000 touch points where we are all over the, as I told you, over the length and breadth of this country. We are there, and we touch people at different places. We touch people at their home. We touch people at the retail outlets. We have, so we have our stakeholders spread all over, and that is where we have to create that trust between all the stakeholders, and we have to maintain it. This year we have, I mean, coincidentally, this year we are celebrating 2018 as a year of trust for Indian Oil. What we have really tried to focus on is, can we tell all our stakeholders, of course, include my internal stakeholders, that is my employees, external stakeholders, even the government, even the shareholders or other, can we send a message very clear and loud to every stakeholder that we believe in trust to the truest sense. So we have taken a lot of exercises, a lot of activities, but we take a lot of credit amongst ourselves that we are one of the topmost companies. I mean, we are the highest profit-making company in India consistently for 2 years. We just have a very small profit of 21,000 crores last year. this 2017-18, and before that we had 19,000 crores. So we are the largest profit making, we are the largest commercial enterprise in India. But all those don't take you forward. We still believe in that this does not take you forward. These all have happened, this all must have happened because we have created that trust amongst all the people, even if it is a person who is in the rural area, that yes, Indian Oil cares for you. You can have trust in that. So, and definitely this would take its own course, this should take its own time. But despite this, we have been once again re-emphasizing and reinforcing the trust factor by declaring this year as the year of trust. When we talk of trust, I think this was also there, trust and transparency. What exactly is transparency? How we are looking at transparency? Can we have a system which is transparent? Can we have people who are transparent? Can we have an environment, an ecosystem which is completely transparent? To tell you very frankly, you will face this at some point of time, and I'm warning you sort of. Sometimes you will feel that, I think, did I do correct by making the system transparent? I'll tell you one example. I'm very candid on that. I'll tell you one example. We, 3-4 years before, we made our EPMS system transparent. Yesterday only, I think, somewhere we were talking, and when we were discussing, EPMS is performance management system, electronic performance management system. So we made it electronic, we made it completely open, completely transparent. But at the same time, when we were discussing it, at that a few days before, there were some voices which were being raised, said, did we do a right thing? Did transparency give us the benefit what we wanted to derive out of it? But I mean, my take on that is that it is an irreversible process. You have to get into transparency in the truest sense. And if it has not given a due result, if not given a due benefit what you thought of, then there must be some lacuna in our implementation. There must be some lacuna in our execution of the system. But otherwise, this is definitely an irreversible way. It is a one-way valve. It goes. You have to make it transparent. So this is, I mean, sometimes this question comes, but I must tell that a transparent leader is definitely an inspirational leader. He is open, and you are aware what is happening. You are aware what he's thinking. He's coming out with everything. He doesn't keep anything on the back. And who would not love to have a team leader like that? So that's why whenever we talk of a transparent leader, we normally see a transparent leader is inspirational. We know transparency is the key, definitely, but there are few very simple mantras. I don't want to give any. Of course, we have when we have the panel discussion, we should have some bigger mantras from our esteemed panelists. I'll just give 3 or 4 small mantras for this remaining transparent. Be honest always. And again, when we say small, it is small, but it is difficult to practice. When I say this is very important, you have to be honest, and honest always. Be open and accessible. And as a leader, you please ask questions. I mean, am I telling something different from what normally is told? Normally, you are supposed to be telling that you should elicit questions from others. I am telling you, ask questions. You ask, clarify your things. You ask questions, you clarify your doubts. Do not, you please, if you have come up with something, please re-verify it, please check it up. At the end of it, you should know that are we in sync with your entire team. And confront difficult situations. Don't run away from situations. Don't be that brave, be that person, be that leader you are. Be on the forefront. Of course, we have read stories, so many stories about it. So we know, be there, confront. Provide access to your information. That is what, I mean, this is one thing. And now, I mean, when I talk of this, maybe this was not possible a few years before. 10, 15 years before, Internet of Things and all those things have not come where we could have made it accessible. Now, the technology is available to us. Can we make it accessible to everybody? Can we make it open to everybody? And last but not the least, if you want to be known as a transparent leader, please involve your team in all decision making. Finally, it will be your call. It could be your call, but involve people in your decision making. I think these are very small mantras which you can practice everywhere or anywhere, which can give you the benefits or which can really portray you as a transparent leader, and of course thereby leading to become a inspirational leader as well. And I keep on telling that. I think last time also when we were here, if people remember, I do remember my talks which I talked of. If they remember, then one point which I always say, whenever you are in doubt in any of this regarding trust or transparency, please go and take the mirror test. Please go and stand in front of the mirror, because mirror doesn't lie at all. It will tell you that whether you are right or wrong. Please ask the person in the mirror the question, take that mirror test, and you will know that whether you are in the right direction or not. I think just to conclude, trust and transparency for me form the basics that one should have. If at all we aspire, if at all we are dreaming, if at all we would like to be a leader, we would like to be somewhere in an organizational hierarchy, we have to have that in our DNA. We have to have it in our, we have to manifest it all throughout. We don't have to only tell it from your mouth, we have to tell it from heart, and we have to manifest it in every action of ours. And then only we can really, I mean, HR as a function, HR leaders as the group can definitely bring in that change which a company aspires to have. And I am sure that this small steps by each one of us in each of our areas, wherever we are, little, whether it is personal or professional, we can make that difference. Once again, thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. I mean, I must thank you very much for inviting me here and permitting me to deliver my heart out. I don't normally say what is there in me. Thank you very much. Thanks to entire VGSoM for having me here, and of course the lovely students whom I had interacted last time. Thank you very much for hearing me again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your rich words of wisdom, which have set the pace of this event.
Moving on, we would now request Professor Abhijit Chandra to deliver a vote of thanks.
Okay, so the theme of the conclave is trust and transparency. So trust me, I'm not going to talk about HR at all. And I'll keep it transparent. I can't talk about HR. I don't know anything about it. Rather, I take this opportunity to extend our sincere thanks to one and all. Our sincere thanks to Mr. Ranjan Kumar Mahapatra, the Director HR for Indian Oil Corporation Limited, and Chairman Lanka IOC, for taking time out of his busy schedule and coming over here to share his words of wisdom. We also would like to thank Professor B.N. Singh, who has come and share his words with us about the institute initiatives and the issues that we would be facing in terms of handling the HR related issues. I would like to thank Professor Gautam Sinha for talking about corporate governance and how taking all the stakeholders together will help the organization go ahead. And next, we can't thank enough to our beloved Dean, Professor Praveena Rajiv. She is the source of our inspiration and energy for whatever we do. So we just can't thank her enough, period. Next in line, I would like to thank all the distinguished guests from corporate, particularly those who have come here to be part of the panel discussion. We are very much looking forward to having a great deliberation on the issues. We also I would like to thank our team from Indian Oil Corporation Limited for coming over here. And last but not the least, the other stakeholders of the school, which includes our students, our staff members, the support staff of the institute, and the institute administration, who have extended their support in organizing the event. And I'm sure the success is credited to their efforts as well. Well, that's all I have to say. Teams, corporate and media interaction cell will be thanked later. So that's all. Thank you very much for being here.
We take this opportunity to sincerely thank Professor Chandra for being the pillar of support for all our endeavors. Thank you, sir. We will now request our faculties in attendance to come on stage to honor our esteemed dignitaries. We kindly request Dr. Shushmita Mukhopadhyay to present a memento to our chief guest, Professor B.N. Singh.
We would now invite Dr. Parama Barai to honor Mr. Ranjan Kumar Mahapatra with a memento. industry stalwarts, weighing up connections between success and human relationships in the corporate ecosystem on one stage. Hence, without wasting any time, please join us in welcoming our first guest to the stage, Mr. Arun Kumar Krishnamurthy, Director and Head of HR at Barclays. An enthusiastic and charismatic leader, Mr. Krishnamurthy, over his long and illustrious career, has proved his expertise in major aspects of human resource management. Having worked for corporate giants such as Vodafone, Unilever, and Pidilite, Mr. Krishnamurthy has managed to carve a niche for himself. He is currently associated with Barclays, a leading name in the banking and financial services sector, managing a rich and diverse workforce. Mr. Krishnamurthy is also a chartered fellow of the FCPID. We firmly believe that he will bring to the table invaluable insights from his experience. We are deeply honored to welcome you, sir.
Next, we would now like to invite our next panelist on stage, Dr. Anjan Bhaumik, Director Human Resources, India and EMEA for the Hashi Company. Dr. Anjan is an ardent transformational leader who brings a holistic perspective of the business environment to the table. With over 17 years of industry experience in big houses such as ITC, Lafarge and Vedanta, his passion for challenges and breakthrough ideas has only increased and proved to be instrumental for comprehensive business growth. We fondly anticipate a plethora of his exceptionally invaluable insights in today's discussion. It's our privilege to have you here, sir.
Moving forward, we proudly invite our next panelist on stage, Dr. Sujata Sudhindra, Head Human Resources at Aditya Birla Finance Limited. Known to be a passionate leader with exceedingly looked for virtues such as strong domain knowledge, humility, and great interpersonal skills, Dr. Sujata has been influential in driving successful talent management strategies and boosting the growth trajectory of her organization in her stellar career spanning over 22 years. It is indeed befitting that we have the privilege of hosting such an exemplary person to enthrall us with her priceless insights. Here's a hearty welcome to you, ma'am.
Our next panelist of the day is Mr. Sandeep Tyagi, Director HR at Samsung Electronics. A dynamic motivational leader, Mr. Tyagi has steered numerous organizations and helped them achieve their development goals through his vision and innovation. Over 25 years, he has been associated with industry leaders like NTPC Limited, Sony, Xerox, Bharti Airtel, etc. In his long career, he has effortlessly traded through almost all the crux areas of talent acquisition, leadership assessment, and business development. It is our firm conviction that his rich and diverse experience will further enhance our esteemed panel today. We offer you our most grateful welcome, sir.
Pacing things up, we are delighted to call upon stage our next panelist, Mr. Shubhankar Roy Chaudhary, Executive Director and Head HR, APAC and Japan at Lenovo. An influential agent of change, Mr. Roy Chaudhary over a long and illustrious career spanning over 2 decades, has been at the forefront of a multitude of organizations, nurturing a diverse pool of human capital. He has been associated with several corporate giants over the years, including Larsen & Toubro, Siemens, PricewaterhouseCoopers, IBM, Nokia, and Lenovo, proving his mettle in diverse areas of people strategy, talent strategy, performance management, and HR analytics. We eagerly anticipate his invaluable insights, which will make this session richer and more comprehensive. We are delighted to welcome you to this conclave, sir. Moving forward, we would now like to take the privilege to invite on stage our next panelist, Mr. S.K. Bose, Executive Director HR at Indian Oil Corporation Limited. A transformational leader in his own right, Mr. Bose has been the General Manager for the Human Resource Division at Panipat Refinery. He is a postgraduate diploma holder in General Management, an MTech in System Management, and a BTech in Electrical Engineering. Currently involved in skill development, Mr. Bose has successfully mastered various fields in HR management, including talent acquisition and management. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Soaking in this air of euphoria, it is finally time for us to invite on stage the moderator of today's discussion. He is none other than the two-time TEDx speaker and design thinker, Mr. Savin Hegde. Well, think about someone with many feathers in his cap, and you have Mr. Savin's name popping up in your head. A business storyteller, an entrepreneur, improve artist, and one of the top 10 public speakers in the world of 2017, his list of accomplishments is quite a long one. In our endeavor to make the HR Conclave 2018 a one-of-its-kind experience, we can think of none other than him to lend the right flow to the talks and shine the spotlight on the theme of this year's discussion, trust and transparency. It is our pleasure to extend a cheerful welcome to you, sir. We'll now request our faculties to come on stage to honor our honorable panelist. We kindly request Dr. Ranjan Chaudhary to honor Mr. Arun Kumar Krishnamurthy.
All right. Okay, in that case, we would like Sangeeta ma'am to please come up on stage and honor our guest. Now, we would kindly invite Dr. Abhijit Chandra to honor Mr. Anjan Bhomik.
Moving forward, we kindly request Dr. Barnali Nag to felicitate Dr. Sujata Sudhindra.
We would now like to invite Dr. Amit Upadhyay to honor Mr. Sandeep Tyagi. Moving forward, we would like to invite Dr. Rudra Prakash Pradhan on stage to felicitate Mr. S.K. Basu.
We would now kindly request Professor Saini Das to felicitate Mr. Shubhankar Rai Chaudhary.
Finally, we would like to invite Dr. Parma Barai to felicitate our celebrated moderator, Mr. Savin Hegde.
Now, we move on to the most exciting part of the event. In the last edition, we discussed about the disruption occurring in the wider business environment. Hence, it is only fitting that this time round we go back to the basics, trust and transparency. With this idea, the topic for this year's discussion will be HR Today, Welding Trust and Transparency for Organizational Success. It is our endeavor today to find out how can we achieve organizational success and what roles do trust and transparency play in that. We would like to now play a short video outlining the idea and theme for HR Conclave 2018.
Now, to set things off without any further delay, I would now request our moderator, Mr. Savin Hegde, to take charge of the meet.
Check. All right, very good afternoon. I was told I'm going to get a very, very young and exciting, energetic crowd. Okay, so thank you guys for that amazing response. So by far, this is the most intelligent crowd I am speaking to. Some of you are doubting yourself, like, really? Okay. Especially last week I was in IIT Bombay, so that's, no, not really, I was just kidding. But I wanted to know, with all honesty, I want you to tell us, how many of you have been forced to come here? Everybody, right? Okay, good. Okay, like I said, my name is Savin, and I'm far away from HR as a fraternity because one of the things that was not mentioned in my introductions is I'm an engineer. I can see I lost respect in your eyes now. How many engineers in this audience? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, sorry. Okay, that was the wrong question. Anybody who's not an engineer in the audience? I like how, oh wow, one person, okay. Amazing. I think even the videographers are engineers. That's amazing. This is something that I generally advise. So we conduct a lot of storytelling programs for business leaders in which we talk about stepping away from the lectern because I think it's more transparent. So do you feel this is more transparent? Are you guys able to hear me? So I'm slightly breaking the pattern. Is that okay with all of you? Okay. So my first question to the audience is, I think trust is both applicable in our work life as well as our personal life. Is it? Okay. So can you think of this one person that you do not trust? Can you name that person? Don't point at each other. You're sitting right next to each other. But for me, I had this big dilemma in my personal life a few years back. Like I said, I'm an engineer. I was working at the world's largest automotive company. And at that point in time, I honestly was blaming the management a lot, complaining and cribbing a lot, saying that I cannot see what's happening. There is not enough learning initiatives for me. I don't see growth. And I used to be that person in that company. And then I got to attend a conference like this back in Bangalore. It was a very big summit where they had invited a lot of big entrepreneurs to talk. And I was in the audience just like you, waiting for some inspiration. And the person on stage, his name is Vinod, the founder of Sun Microsystems. Yes, there is one thing common to the two of us, you and me. There is a Vinod that made an impact on our life, right? So he was on stage and he spoke about something very, very interesting. He said that my willingness to fail is what has helped me succeed. And at that point in time in my career, I thought, when a billionaire entrepreneur says it's okay to fail, let's try. I thought to myself, I'm just an engineer, I can try too. So I took a leap of faith and left that job and tried to start things on my own. And that's when I felt a big difference between a structured organization and something that I'm a part of that is completely unstructured. There is nobody to give you direction sometimes. And it's a whole new world. So there was a lot of transparency here, but the transparency was helping me understand that where am I heading, what am I doing? I cannot blame anybody else. And I had just started out on that journey, and about a year into that journey, something happened. Something personal happened. I got diagnosed with this disease called dengue. How many of you know what is dengue? Yes, most of you would know. It starts with a simple bite of a mosquito. And that's where I had this trust deficit, what I call it. So I was rushed to the hospital because my platelet count went below 20,000. And I was rushed straight into the emergency ward. So I was lying in the emergency ward on the bed. And I was freaked out. And that's when the ward boy came running to me and gave me this thing called as the SGF. I took the SGF, I was freaked out, I didn't know what to do with it. When I opened it, I realized SGF was nothing but a sleeveless green frock. I held it to myself. I saw it was sleeveless, and I was asked to wear it. I turned around, it was backless, and I felt absolutely hopeless. And at that point in time, I had 3 words lingering in my head, which was, what the frock? I was made to lie down there, yes, and that's when the doctor came in. Doctor came in and looked at me and said, this looks really bad. The platelet count is 5,800 now. And you know the safety limit is 1.5 lakh. And he asked me if there's internal bleeding and so on. And at that point in time, dengue was not such a prevalent disease, so they didn't know what to do exactly. And I was left alone, and then the nurse comes in to collect the blood, right? So I was there, the nurse walks in, I looked at her, she looked at me, and I don't know about my platelet, but my heartbeat definitely went up. And she came in a skirt, okay, slightly longer than mine, and she put up my finger, made a small prick, and tried to collect some blood. The guy on the next bed in the emergency ward, he had opposite of what I had, excessive platelets, so there was no, the blood clots because of your platelets. So the blood would not come. So she went to the bed next to me and she made a small prick and the blood wouldn't come. She made another prick, the blood wouldn't come. And she looked right, she looked left, took out a small knife, made a cut on his finger, the blood came, she collected it, put it in her tray. Meanwhile, the guy on the 3rd bed jumped up, ran to the corner of the room, and he was shivering there. I didn't know what was happening. So I asked the nurse, hey, what happened? And that's when she said he was next in line for the urine test. Right? I was freaked out. I mean, all these things are happening around me. In fact, every evening the doctors would come to check if everybody is alive. Like, okay, he's dying. Oh, this Saveen is alive still, and then he's dying, like that. And I remember the doctor came to me with a list of forms saying, we are going to try some experimental procedures of platelet transfusion all night. Would you sign up for it? And that's when this trust deficit or fear kicked in me, saying, should I trust this person? I don't even know this doctor, but I didn't have much option. And I remember my mom sitting next to me, patting on my shoulder, saying, just extend your hand of trust and see what happens. So I signed on that form, gave it to the doctor, and that man spent almost 4 nights and 3 full days next to me, taking me through this experimental procedure and got me out of the hospital. I think that was one of the key moments where I had to trust somebody as a stranger. And I think we all go through such moments in our life where we either trust somebody or we don't. And this is not just in an organization, whether it is transparency, and he was very transparent about the fact that this may work, may not work. It felt like my college exam, where my mom would ask me after I come back from the exam, how have you performed? And I would tell her, I've done my best, but I don't know what's going to happen. That's exactly what the doctor told. But I think the transparency helped me build that trust. I've been doing this, taking on this entrepreneurial journey for the last 7 years, and it's been a roller coaster ride. So I essentially work with companies on breaking the barriers that help build better collaboration amongst leaders, help them become more creative using design thinking, and it's an exciting journey. But the best part is I don't see myself sticking to a routine, and that's the beauty of it. And I'm very, very honored to be here, to be moderating this panel, and to be taking you through the number of questions that we have for this amazing panel. And I think we are very lucky to have you guys here, because I'm expecting some interesting questions from you as well. Is it okay to start? Yes. So can you applaud as loudly as possible before we kick start? Okay. So, welcome everyone. Thank you. My first question is a very generic one. It's about trust. Now, what does trust mean to us in our respective organizations? And this question is open to anybody who wants to take it. What is trust and what does it mean to us in a workplace? Yes, she gave me the question, so. No, I'm just kidding.
Very good afternoon.
Yes, it's all right.
So, even before, am I audible? So, even before I share my perspective, I would like to thank Mr. Ranjan Mahapatra, because what all we actually were sitting for 5 minutes and saying, yeah, probably we could discuss that. He said it all and said, I'm not from HR. So that puts us in tricks. So literally what we wanted to say in different aspects he communicated. Then I was reflecting back saying, yeah, the topic is trust and transparency. It is not confined to any particular function, particular business. It's depending on humanity. So it does not change irrespective of whoever is going to talk about trust and transparency. Hence, I think we all talk the same language. Can anybody actually talk and feel about trust? It has to be experienced, right? And where does this trust come from? It comes from when you are a baby, when you're learning to walk, when you falter, but your mother, your parents trust that you can walk. You fall down, but there's somebody who's encouraging you. It starts from there. If you have a healthy childhood, yeah, it's okay to fall, it is okay to fail, but get up. That's where it begins, and then we as babies grow into adults, and that's what we carry it across the organization. I think it starts from there. And transparency. How many of our parents are ready to give us feedback directly? We are so scared that we'll be, we are afraid that we'll be hurting our kids. So even if the child does something wrong, the father wants to correct or the mother wants to correct, the other spouse will say no. So this again carries back to the organization. Very great leaders they are able to do business results, but they find it very difficult to give, they find it difficult to have candid conversations and great feedback. So I think trust and transparency begins very, very early in life. Then if you have to look at it, what is trust and transparency? It is very simple. It is not as complicated as we want it to be. Why are we existing? So in an organization, the vision is very, very important, and as rightly everybody said, it has to be simple, the vision and the mission. The purpose, if it is not there, then what is going to happen? I think that's a basic humanity of the vision and mission being the organization. So trust has to be experienced.
Trust has to be experienced, and I think it is felt in the mission and vision of the organization.
Absolutely.
Right. Yes.
So I would just keep it very short and say, for me personally, I trust someone when 3 conditions are fulfilled, right? You could look at it from your own experience with the doctors, yeah? One is, do the two have an aligned purpose, right? So, for example, the doctor and you had the same objective, which is to throw you out of the hospital, right? Fully fit, right? There is aligned purpose. The second one is what I call as competence, right? Do I really respect that individual as a professional leader in whatever they do, whether it is storytelling, design thinking, whether it is theatrics, movies, is the person really competent? And the third one, perhaps the most important, is character, right? The person is very, very competent. Both of us have the same purpose, which is very aligned. Is the means to the end going to be in a way I would love it to be, right? Which comes down to character and values. So to me, whether it's individuals, relationships, organizations, when purpose is aligned and it meets character and competence, it is a great environment to be trustworthy.
Thank you. Coming to the trust, as our director HR spoke in the morning, the defining trust, Let me slightly elaborate on this again. In Indian Oil context, we believe that trust is something what we have promised. If you can deliver that, that is the first thing. Secondly, whatever we have promised, we have to deliver time and again and all the time. And thirdly, in case of adversity also, we have to deliver the same specification, same quality, what we have promised. So let me an example, given a recent example, when the Kerala flood just happened, few districts were badly affected. What happened? But Indian Oil never stopped supplying the aviation fuel. All the helicopters you have seen, dropping foods, medical aid, lifting people from the difficult areas, those helicopters were fueled by none other than Indian Oil. They were working 24/7. And if you see our retail outlets, they are not dry. They are maybe feeling that all cars or scooters were fueled all the time, but they are deliberately see that the vehicles which are moving with the supplies, taking food, water, medicines, they were fueled fast. So I was monitoring our field force. They were actively working 24/7, conducting meeting at right 3 o'clock, and they ensure that our promise is to deliver to the people at the time of need. So trust is something when you have promised to your friend or relatives or your teachers or your parents, you have to deliver that in spite of all your difficulties, whatever it may be. So students, for the students particularly, you have to be very consistent. If you miss one time, one slip in trust, then it's gone. It takes a lot of time to develop trust, and if you commit one mistake, entire thing gone. So trust is something, it binds the leader and the employees. It's a glue basically. So one example ma'am has told, my co-panelist, when the trust starts with the baby and the mother. But I believe yesterday night I was thinking, when it started actually, what is the purest form of trust? I think the baby in the womb, mother's womb, that is the beginning of the trust. Because though I belong to engineering fraternity, later become HR, but I have a lot of doctors, friends, and I have never seen any mother given a choice between the mother, the child will die or mother will die, one choice, somebody will live and somebody will die. No mother in the earth are not ready to sacrifice for the sake of the baby. So the trust starts from there. The baby in the womb, I mean the fetus, he or she knows that the mother is there to take care. Similarly, trust is something in the organization, it happens. So in our organization, I have done a lot of analysis. I have seen that A trust B, B trust C, immediately A trust C. Suppose my director trusts me and I trust somebody in the down the line, my directors automatically trust that. So this is the practice which is going on. One more, I'll take 10 more seconds. One more analysis we have seen in Harvard Business School. They have done one analysis that the most of the Fortune 500 companies which were there in 1990s, today they are gone. 85% are not there in the list. The 15% still existing, they analyzed why they are existing. One, they update their technology. Whenever the technological transformation takes place, they started updating that and absorbing those technologies. Secondly, they have the people power and a culture of trust. Because high trust and high performing teams are there, so they succeeded in maintaining their list, a number in the list. So this is what happening. So in the organizations, if trust is there, high performing team will be there, and the organization flows. Because the seniors, they just empower the juniors, juniors further empower the team, and team carries forward. That's why the organization continuously, sustainably, they do well. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I'm going to take this off from Mr. Bose. What he said is very important, that trust in good times as well as in adversity. So the next question for the panelists who have not spoken yet could be, how is trust different when the organization is doing well, and how could it vary when it is tough times are there? How could it be different? I mean, Mr. Bose mentioned about how the trust between the customer and the brand is built by delivering what is promised. But this could be more with the employees and so on. So I would leave the question open to Dr. Ranjan or Shubhankar as well.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Yeah, a couple of things. Fundamentally, when you have a business cycle where firms do well, the seeking of information by the employees are relatively less, because all's fine. You fundamentally have a stable cycle. Everything is predictable. The inquiry for such information is something that rests largely at a much more easier level vis-a-vis when things are a lot different. In tough times, it's only those times that the employee seeks more clarity, more inquiry, right? And that is where I think a lot of us, when we design tools or systems in HR to enable CEOs or board members, the whole thing around what to communicate and how to communicate, but communicate nonetheless is critical, right? At the stake of being provocative, there are certain times, and I must confess, that we cannot communicate everything at all point of time, right? So we need to ensure that at the end of the day, the machine runs, and therefore we need to do what is the best for the firm in terms of the time that you just alluded to. And I think one of the things that, and trust me, my experience has been the employees understand. The employees exactly know if there are rumors in the corridors that, you know what, you've not given us 100%, but you've given us 70%, which is good. So in terms of tough times, I think one of the important things is always bear in mind that information is the trigger, which is much more than what it was when things are okay. It's okay to give 70% information. You don't have to say that the company is shutting down tomorrow if it is not. You don't have to say that the employer, 10 people will leave tomorrow in a town hall, right? So you've got to be very sensitive, but then they understand. So that's something which I have experienced, but I think that's something we need to keep in mind when we design tools or systems, especially enabling board members, because it's the board that communicates, or the chairman which communicates, yeah.
So your question was that what happens when times are challenging. I come from an industry which is the technology industry where every day is challenging. If you look at the fourth industrial revolution, we are talking about digitization, we are talking about automation. There are significant shifts in business models, in our ecosystem, in our competitive landscape, and that pushes us as organizations to continuously reinvent itself. So I would say that in such times there are dilemmas that you face. What can an organization do? I'll give you some numbers. So it's said that 50% of the jobs that are existing today will not be there. How do you really build trust in an organization or in industries that are going through this change? If you look at mergers and acquisitions across the industries, last year we had $3.4 trillion of M&A deals. 2018, we're talking about 4.4 trillion. So with M&As, divestitures, acquisitions, reorganizations, every year has become the norm. So when your jobs are getting impacted, your roles are getting impacted, and at the same time, you've got families to feed. So there are organizations which have been able to address this change from a number of ways. So number one, I think we all spoke about how can you become as transparent as possible to the limit that is possible, as Anjan just mentioned. Secondly, how can you create an organization where people are able to voice their opinions easily, fearlessly. The third is that when we talk about building trust in organization, it would be our 5 different levers, which is I believe in and which is what I was really trying to summarize. Number one is with your employees. Secondly, with your shareholders. Third is with your local communities. Number 4 is with your society. And number 5 is with your customer. So if you look at these 5 areas, you have to really realize that each of these 5 stakeholders are equally important as we move forward from an organization's context.
So every decision that you take, what you're saying is we have to keep all these five in mind and not just the primary stakeholders.
Absolutely, and Mr. Mahapatra spoke about the brand. We spoke about local communities just now in the flood in Kerala.
Yeah.
We spoke about, that is for the Kerala, and we talk about society where we have the environment, pollution, how do you, take away e-waste out. Employees is what the discussion is all about, and shareholders is absolutely the, the board and the CEO's responsibility. But what happens is many a times that the focus becomes only for the shareholders, and that's where the problem starts.
Right. So this morning, I think you were talking about your experience when you belonged to a certain company and overnight it changed over. So would you like to share that with this audience about that experience?
It was a very interesting experience. So I was working with a company and we were doing very well, but there was a regulation that this company had to be sold off to another company, as a part of the regulation globally. So we were very, very excited. All employees were told that we would be rebranded as a new name and we would be spun off as a separate company with a new CEO coming in. And he had a vision in place where he wanted to grow the business from X to Y. We were all so charged up and we were ready to go. We were branded also externally as a new name. And one fine evening, and I still remember I was in Delhi. I was in a hotel with a colleague of mine and we had a late evening because we were working on a client, for a client. And he calls me up from the airport and says, "Shubhankar, good morning." I said, "Yes, why did you call me up? You were not supposed to." He said, "We have been sold." I said, "What?" Nice joke. And I kept the phone down. He said, before I kept the phone down, the last thing I heard him say, "You don't believe me, bugger? Watch CNBC." So I switched on the TV and the news was all there that my organization was sold. So this was a very interesting example of how you come to know that you are actually belong to another organization from the external media rather than from your own internal communication. Now, cut back a couple of years later on, when we acquired a company 4 years back, one of the things that we did with all legal permissions and alignment, that before we actually, when the deal was announced, we started reaching out to the company that we have acquired to build trust and ensure that you are really in safe hands. There is career in front of you. This is what the organization design may look like. Share your grievances and concerns. So I think these are very important because in any M&A, the asset that gives you the maximum return is the people.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. I would like to now move this from an M&A situation to, let's say the company is working in India, but the headquarters is somewhere else. And the big decisions are taken there. And how does it translate to employees here, and how does it impact them? And it could be the same thing, that they could hear about it from a media. So what are the efforts that are put in? And I would direct this question to Mr. Sandeep.
So thank you, Suvin. First, coming to trust, this thing. When, morning, Shubham was briefing me about the panelists, he briefed me about Suvin. So told me one of the top 10 TEDx speakers and very renowned personality. I got a impression I'll be meeting an elderly person, gray-haired, and here when I come, I find a very tall, lanky, dashing guy sitting just next to me. So you see, you make your own perceptions, which are very personalized to your understandings. So you, first and foremost, when you develop trust, is with yourself. And people I've seen, those who are successful, are those who trust themselves. Because, if you do not trust yourself, then there's a very big problem. Those who are, there are so many adversities in the times we are living in. It is the trust in yourself which stands you in all those adversities. So I'm very happy to meet all my panelists here. Yeah. Now coming to Suvin's question, in a global organization, when decisions are taken, somewhere else in some other part of the world, and how it impacts the local this thing. So yes, in most of the large multinational companies, globally decisions are taken irrespective of what's happening in the local subsidiaries. And decisions are taken on the, across the board decisions. So I'll tell you about tough decisions like there's going to be a 10% reduction in headcount. So it is across the board. And once a decision is taken in headquarters, you have to implement this very unpleasantly. Nobody likes taking such decisions. But when somewhere in some part of the world, these kind of things are decided, you have to follow those things. But having said that, local subsidiaries do play a very important part. How do they translate these global diktats in a manner which is more humane and more in terms of translating the decisions to actions are more smooth and homogeneous. So there are times of adversities in all large companies, but these companies also have the tenacity to come out of those problems. We have gone through that problem, but we had that resolve to come out of it. So yes, it impacts a lot, but then you have to have that will and the zeal to move out of it and move ahead in life.
If I may just add there, I think the world is moving from central leadership to distributed global leadership, right? I think if I look at whether it is Barclays that I'm associated with now, or Vodafone or Unilever in the past, I don't think there are diktats. If any of the leaders in India feel that these are diktats, the best way to interpret that is that they have not been able to influence the decision globally, proactively, right? I think we need to move away in the Indian industry to move away from feeling victims to a global decision that was taken so-called independently, to saying what could we have done better to influence that. Geography is history now. You work across time zones. Leadership have virtual global connect. And at least in Barclays, information is not a barrier, because when it hits London, it hits Bombay. So the only thing that's missing is rather than thinking silos, I think the Indian industry, Indian practitioners, including people like myself, we need to think of what is a scalable solution. Because very often the temptation is to do things hyper-local rather than thinking scale. Right? I don't think if an Indian leader or leadership comes up with globally scalable solutions that are invented in India, at least in Barclays, it's not a barrier. To the lot of organizations that I work for, that's not the barrier. The lack of trying is more like feeling victim, which is certainly not desirable.
If I can just summarize very quickly, the three things I think to your question, Saveen. One is, if the organization is very, very culturally sensitive, then it becomes easier. Second is, if the organization is collaborative and inclusive. then it becomes very easy or difficult. And the third, I would say, how delegative it is, as he said, distributed leadership. So these are the three things that, to me, would determine how successful the global-local relationship is that helps or trust or mistrust.
I really like the statement Arun also made, saying that geography is now history. And the ownership the Indian leadership can take about every decision that is being taken, saying that we are part of that decision, it's not a decision taken at silo. So the next question is, I think, very specific examples that if you can share from your experience about certain decisions that you were involved in, that were taken to build this transparency and break these barriers so that there is a better employee connect and the community connect, the customer connect, whatever breaks this barrier that holds us back from being more trustworthy.
Let me take that. So, if you are wanting to create a transparent organization, you have to have systems and processes which is going to facilitate transparency and trust. The smallest thing, does your frontline force know what they are doing and why they are doing the business? So do they know their KRAs in the beginning of the year and how they are going to achieve it? Everybody, we usually catch hold of the employee on the 11th month and 12th month and we give a rating. Not possible. You have to, these are simple basic things. In the beginning of the financial year, this is the organization goal, probably in his language, and this is your business goal, and this is what you're supposed to deliver. These are the enablers the organization will provide. I think that's very, very important. So have systems and processes. Encourage risk-taking. The minute we are, like exactly what Shubhankar was saying, the minute shareholders are investing, we are only looking at ROI and ROA, not done. That means there is no place for any kind of risk-taking. There's no creativity and innovation. Great organizations, if it is very structured, you will not find, it will be only just maintaining the profit level. I don't think you can say an exponential growth, it's an incremental growth. Then, view mistakes as learning opportunities, and this I'm talking about my organization. So, we are in a lending business, and I still remember when we were having a review with Mr. Birla and Ajay Srinivasan, who heads financial services. One account went bad, and we were fairly very worried as to how we are going to position. The first question Mr. Birla asked is, what did we learn from this deal? Yeah? Then that put us into ease. We said, you know, these 2-3 things probably we should have been a little more careful, we should have looked at the balance sheets a little more better. He said, so what do you think now we are going to do? That one discussion led to the other, and we came up with 2 business ideas. And HR in Aditya Birla Group, I must really appreciate and acknowledge, is very, very strong. It's an equal business partners. We exactly know what metrics will bring revenue for us. For every initiative we take, is this sustainable? Is this futuristic? Is this profitable? So we ask these questions. So that's very important. And my personal example, when we create policy, only 2 sets of people will always tell you the facts and state the truth. That is your customer and your frontline employee who is dealing with the customer. So whenever I do my branch visits, I will ensure I meet my customers. I will meet for the people who we are lending money, the frontline who are probably not on your payroll but they're actually generating revenue. You ask them where it pains to the customer, and then you create an employee-friendly policy so that it will go back and reach to the customer. I think these are very critical things. And then people know the truth. Your employees will know the truth. It is okay to share your vulnerabilities. You as a leader need not at any given point of time, every given point of time, know the truth. So many times we've gone back, we've met we've met customers ourselves in our training program. It is very important to meet your customers. Because when you're presenting to the board, we talk about our NPS. We talk about great slides which say that how close we are to the customer. But then we call the customers and say, how do you experience us? That is the job of the leadership team. Yeah. So I think these 2-3 things, irrespective of whichever function you are, every senior management has to deliver.
I would like to supplement on that.
Just one point. I think yesterday when I met Dr. Sujata, I think the first thing she said is she actually is living by whatever she spoke now. She went to her branch and met some of her frontline staff yesterday because she was in Calcutta. And that talks about the connect that you build, and also what you're telling us is also something that you're doing. The second thing is the senior leadership team not reprimanding you for a mistake, but also saying what did we learn from this for the next step. I think that's a great learning for us as youngsters to look at it and say that it's, and we should imbibe that it's okay to fail. What did we learn from it? And let's not repeat the same thing again. That's the ideology. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to supplement what you have said, and my experience at Indian Oil. We have been recruiting more than 200 officers every year for the last 5 years. So if you see, my answers are more towards our probable employees who will be joining very soon Indian Oil. Friends, what we do, we have a strong onboarding program. During onboarding program, we clearly mention the employee value proposition, where we clearly tell in a voice principle, VOICE. V is the vision of the corporation, I mean Indian Oil. O is the opportunity for the new employees, the officers. What are the opportunity? Because we are a pan-India company, we have presence everywhere, in every field, in technology, in marketing, in sales, operations. Then we talk about VOI, what incentive we provide to you in return of your service to Indian Oil. And then C for career opportunity, what career opportunity you have in Indian Oil. If you join today, after 35 years or 40 years, where you will go. Then the last is the experimentation, VOICE. Experimentation, what experimentation will start in Indian Oil? Because the moment you join Indian Oil, we give lot of empowerment. With the empowerment, you start experimenting. Even if you commit mistake, our seniors support them. So that level of trust is there. In the process, what happened, we have observed that generation to generation, the trust builds up. Because if you commit mistake, innovating something and trying to bring in new jobs, with creativity, new systems, and a new way of attracting customers or serving the customers, we just allow that. And in the process, what happens, you develop the trust with the senior leadership. And similar way, the way you groom, you pass on to the juniors. So this way the process continues for last 5 decades. That's why the company is growing. And this is our observation particularly. Second thing, the new officers who are joining, they know that they are going to serve India first. Because we are the company, though we are $78 billion and a bigger profit of $3.5 billion, but still our main objective is to first is creating energy, converting crude to petroleum products, and supply and distribution at every nook and corner of India, even outside India also. So this culture we inculcate with the new officers. The service mentality comes to them. So they always think about India and connect with India, and they are ready to serve any part of the country. We have more than 600 locations. You will find like Air India, even they make loss, they operate in Guwahati, Shillong, everywhere. So Indian Oil, even though we make a lot of loss in different pocket in supply distribution, but still we maintain our supply line, even in Kargil or Kanyakumari. So this mentality and this culture has been inculcated in the beginning itself, and this culture of trust and transparency, that is there from the beginning, and they pass on to their juniors. So this type of mentorship continues. That's why it is a success story.
Yeah. One very interesting thing that you mentioned, Mr. Bose, is that you have in your the voice bit that you explained, you said a career path of 35 years when somebody joins. I think that's a very big vision for anybody who's joining an organization. You show them a career path that's 35 years ahead. I think that talks a lot about how it has been ingrained in the approach itself.
And if you see that the person who join Indian Oil, they never leave. Those who few people, only 0.8% they leave, they go for MBA like you. People after joining MBA, they want to come back. I remember our director HR was interacting with IIM Calcutta last year, and few MBA students were there, and one of them took study leave from Indian Oil and at IIM Calcutta. He was doing MBA, And another 2%, they resigned Indian Oil and joined MBA at IIM Calcutta, executive program, I believe, sir. And after completing, they were in the final year, they requested him to take us back again. But we don't, unfortunately, we don't have policy. But we are open to them again, they can join. And it happened that some people have resigned Indian Oil, gone for MBA, and again joined back after appearing entrance examination and joined. People who join Indian Oil, they mostly retire from Indian Oil. Even if they retire, they continue their relationship with Indian Oil.
Very nice. I think that, yeah, we can applaud for that. You want to add something to that?
I just want to add on the point Mr. Mahapatra raised on hierarchy, because hierarchy is also a very, very important ingredient that can lead to mistrust in organizations. So there are a couple of things that when I took on the role, did on to break hierarchy. One, of course, is delayering the organization, which we already discussed. The other one is interesting, is that how do you build a culture of non-hierarchy? In many places, people call each other by sir. So one of the organizations I worked in, I joined there and realized people calling sir or a boss, and nothing wrong in that. It's out of respect, because many cultures we do that. But also what it does, it stifles innovation, stifles openness in the organization. So I ensured that people are encouraged to call people in their first name, and when it did not happen naturally, I sent a very, very nice email to the entire organization saying that what is a power index that societies have? Countries like South Korea has got the highest power index, which means you have a huge respect for hierarchy, while Scandinavian countries have got very low power index. We can walk up to anybody and talk to anybody. So I sent an email out saying that boss, sir, or G, you can choose what you want. And it was more about, if people are calling you a boss, sir, or G, then the onus is on the manager to ensure that he gives the freedom to the employee to call each other by the first name. The other dimension to hierarchy is about workplaces. So many years back, we used to have cabins, and then we busted the cabins out, and then we had cubicles. But now we are looking at organization. Recently, in my current organization, we also dismantled all kind of cubicles. So it is one flat desk. You have just the screen of the monitor facing each other. And that's really a true open office where you promote collaboration. So how you lay offices, infrastructure, speaks a lot about how the organization's trust and hierarchy is in the company. I went to a business center in Calcutta recently to meet somebody, and I was very amused to find still in these days and words where you have the gentleman who told me, I asked for a washroom, and he said, sir, go straight and take a right turn. And then I walked in, and I saw two toilets, one written manager, another written non-manager.
So I think I would say that a couple of things. Killing hierarchy is going forward when it comes to dealing with the millennials no longer a luxury, right? It's a necessity. I think in one of my previous roles, I always made sure that the youngest graduate joining the firm is on my leadership team for 6 months at graduate. They get to understand what their leaders really do, what are their dilemmas, and second, what's in the mind and heart of all the new graduates joining the firm, right? That's one. Perhaps the one which is far more difficult to kill is, how do you actually encourage dissent, right? I found that organizations which drive a culture of dissent and to surface conflict create a far better ecosystem for driving trust, right? We have a culture which we call as disagree and commit, right? Sometimes meetings could be straight like a scene from a war movie. I think it's better done that way than passive resistance, which is at the root of all organizational challenges, where you disagree, you don't say that, you go back and do exactly what you wanted to do, right? So killing hierarchy, encouraging dissent are a couple of great tools to make sure that we build an ecosystem of trust.
So I have a question to you, Arun. I think you said that you put the youngest graduate with the leadership team. How was that taken when you spoke about it initially, because that's a fresh idea, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So,
This happened in Romania when I was in Vodafone, and a couple of things. One is I also learn as part of the process. Initially, they thought that the person is coming there as my executive assistant or to take the meeting minutes, right? I think one of the ways to deal with is I think creating that role, right? It is about our colleague was talking about, let's say, empowering frontline teams, right? One of the roles that we assigned that person in my team was to be the voice of the frontliners in HR, right? When we take a decision, when we take a policy, when we decide to do something, how are the frontline HR staff feeling about it? If you really look at it, workers' participation in management is not a new concept. It's been there for decades. In fact, in Germany and some Western European countries, there's also representation right at the board level. But very often, we distance ourselves so much from the front lines that I remind myself, if I don't have such thinking in my top team, I will become fossil fuel, right? I think that's one. Second one is critical junctures. Does that person have a vote on critical decisions, right? So you shift the game when you're talking, seeking consensus, or when you're just going through who wants to do this, to make sure that person's voice really counts. Those are the two.
Fantastic.
And I think what that meant is that you get a much closer intimacy between people who are on ground and others. I would say that companies that empower their front lines and make sure that distance between leadership and the front lines is as minimal as possible really build a collaboration of trust, right? I remember the time when one of the ladies in the call center that we had in Romania challenged the leadership team, saying that you say you want to drive a culture of trust. I can't give 10 euros to a customer that I believe has been wronged, right? That set the thinking in the board. And 3 months later, we actually got back saying that we're making fundamental changes in terms of how decisions will be taken closer to ground.
So the empowerment of the frontline staff to make those decisions.
Absolutely. I think it's not just about empowerment, it's about bridging the gap between people who serve customers and people who have governance leadership functions, to make sure that you look at all the 5 ecosystems that Shobhankar mentioned, which is you look at the colleague, which is the employee, you look at the community, which is the society, you look at shareholders, you look at customers, and together you take a holistic decision. If you're far away from customers, trust people who are closer to them.
Absolutely. All right. Dr. Anjan, do you have some examples?
Yeah, I think most of it is largely covered. I think one of the things that occurs to me, and that's something which we did a little at a formative stage of the company we represent, is the fact that we spent a little more time on what we call as the performance planning stage of HR. Right. One of the things that we do to enhance trust is to be able to spend disproportionate, apart from sales and marketing, and these are largely my observations, the senior management spends disproportionate time on sales, marketing, performance planning stages. However, I think it's critical that they spend a little more time in finance, HR, logistics, supply chain, performance planning stages, because those are becoming to be highly strategic. If I give you a few numbers, they spend a cum of about 25 to 30 days on a sales planning process, typically in consumer companies. Take that to an HR, he won't spend more than a day, right? Now, when you're looking at a comprehensive firm structure, you have to ensure that you spend time on the planning process, possibly cut down on your appraisal process, because you do the planning well, you engage on an ongoing basis, you don't need to do appraisals, frankly, because you know that comes in. So I think in addition to what the panel speaks, I think one of the things that HR can facilitate is to be able to focus more on the planning stage of performance and make this as a critical management cycle or a management process rather than an HR process. And I think that to me is critical. The important part is to embed as he talked about, Arun talked about, is, I mean, we have a behavior called question. Now and it's just an active verb. But then what it eludes is it provides you that the platform and the legitimacy to define status quo. And to that, I think increasingly organizations are beginning to have such kind of behavior patterns embedded in functions. So a couple of.
So there's a platform for anybody to ask questions to the senior leadership team. Very interestingly, I was going through a case study of this company called Buffer, and they have a completely transparent salary disclosure Excel sheet online for anybody to access about all the salaries of all the employees of the organization, right from the co-founder till the engineer. How is the salary calculated, and what is his current salary? Actually, you and I can access it right away. So do you think those that can be a very big move, but how far are we from it, and what could happen with these kind of, the structure is very clear cut and it is public, so I can see it.
So this is, there's an article by McKinsey on the same, that how can trust backfire if you open up too much. And one of the outputs of what you just mentioned is that you open up compensation. What could potentially backfire is that people who are down the ladder in terms of organization hierarchy, and when they know the complete compensation details of the leadership, they start losing respect on some of the leadership which they earlier respected.
Right.
So that's one of the things that may potentially happen.
So you've thought about this in some way?
My previous company, Nokia, where I used to work, one of the things that we did, not to the extent of opening of salaries, but everybody's KPI was publicly, right from CEOs down the line, was publicly available for everybody to see. That brings in a lot of accountability and transparency on what each and every person is going to deliver as a part of their work.
And just to add on to what organizations do is they don't disclose specifics of individual salary. What they tend to do is to probably go a step behind to say that, you know what, at a certain management cadre, you belong to a certain scale, so to speak. I think the bigger question is not about, so the trust and transparency, fundamentally what people are asking is, hey, tell me the key characteristics which define your compensation philosophy.
Right.
Don't tell me how much the guy gets. That's not what they're asking.
I would
the formula behind it.
I would absolutely agree. I think I read in the press in India some time back when the Indian government decided to publish the top taxpayers. They really found some people really upset because the numbers were out. You don't want insurance sales people and others chasing you with published numbers, right? But the anonymity of the group data can be hugely transformational, right? For example, in Barclays, we now look at how much we are paying for every level. Okay. How do we cut it by gender, by ethnic groups, and make sure that are there any unconscious biases in there, right? Whether it is promotions, whether it is participation in leadership development, we make sure that is the collective data showing us that are we being inclusive, or are there some unconscious biases that are creeping in, right? So I will be a big fan that while transparency around individual data will itself see an evolution, transparency around collective data can serve a lot more good.
Absolutely.
From public sector perspective, because I am the only person from PSU, and we are much ahead of the private sector as far as the transparency considered. All the pay packages are uploaded in the internet. Yeah. How much anybody who joins Indian Oil, in the staff to officers to chairman, every salary package and pay packages, perks, everything is uploaded. Yeah. So it is very clear, transparent. Secondly, when we talk about transparency, communication plays a very important role. In organizations like us, big organizations like us, who have got pan-India presence, so here communication flows like blood flows in the artery. So you cannot stop communication at any point of time. Today's, in the digital era particularly, if you stop communication, it will come through WhatsApp or Facebook. Nobody can stop communication. So PSUs are much ahead in front, particularly in respect of transparency. And even if you find that there is no mention of transparency, or if you're lacking somewhere, then there is a Right to Information Act. You just pay 10 rupees and get all the information. So which private sector are you not you are not guided by that or bound by the RTI Act, you need not to reply. But public sector, we are bound to give all the information to anyone, any Indian citizen. So even if you waive of 10 rupees also for certain class of people. So this is the way of transparency. Secondly, from HR perspective, you will see our director one policy, one surplus which comes out from the HR, from corporate office, it goes everywhere across the country. So it is implementation is the same way. Now, as I said, HR, the young HR people who joins Indian Oil or public sector companies, they are the custodian of the trust. They ensure the trust and transparency are there in every part of their business. So this is happening, and that's why we are successful in many areas. Thank you.
I just want to add one very interesting point on compensation. So there is a very strong mistrust today in the corporate world when we look at compensation difference between an average employee and a CEO salary. So 1950, and I'll give you some data, 1950, the difference between a CEO salary and an average employee salary was 20 times. So imagine, 1950, 20 times, and now it's 361 times. In general, if there are studies that show that millennials have a lesser trust levels with corporations today than the previous generations were. And this has been also identified as one of the reasons why the gap of trust that actually is widening. But when we look at this data, you would see that some countries, India included, the gap is much higher, while some countries, like many of the Scandinavian countries, the gap between the CEO and the average employee is much lower. And we have found that the trust levels in those countries are much higher than the countries where the gap is much higher.
So, in a sense, you're saying it's a good idea not to reveal the exact compensation in some way where the gap is higher, especially.
Hey, talk about the elephant in the room, right? Across the globe, public sector pay scales are transparent. They're published, right? But the elephant in the room is, how do you provide transparency around income levels that are significantly skewed on performance, right? That's the discretionary element. So I think wherever the world, the corporate world, I think the biggest gap that I see is the pay at risk in proportion to the total pay is significantly higher in the corporate world, and that is directly, at least on paper, linked to shareholder value creation. Whereas in the public sector, from a context of striving for the society and public good, the pay at risk is minimal, if it exists. Right. And I've looked at civil services across different markets. The pay at risk is largely minimal. The question here is, how easy is transparency when there are sharp differentiation between Shubhankar and myself if we are peers at the same corporate grade working in similar roles in the same organization? That's a challenge, right? I don't think firms are at that place of evolution where they are willing to, because the moment I disclose that, I'm actually giving a message that he is less performing or better performing than I do, right? I don't think anywhere, even the public sector has got there, right? It's an evolution that we will get there over a period of time.
And just to add on, what people are asking is, you tell us that your company philosophy differentiates, or there's a differential investment to top performers. You articulate that as a part of your philosophy. I think that's where we need to be a little more open to say that, hey, you know what, there is a differential, there is a high delta, fundamentally because there is a differential investment on pay for performance. And you build that around it, it would probably, but individual salary sharing, I think a little long way to go, at least in Indian subcontext.
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying is the philosophy and the exact parameters based on which this is being done. Dr. Sujata, you have something.
I have a very different view here, and I think I would like to probably agree with Anjan. See, we are regulated driven. The CEO salary is there on the website, whether you like it or not. Yeah? So there's nothing that you have to hide. I think the youngsters are not looking for salary, they're looking for wealth creation. And wealth creation is a collective effort. They understand that. And that is largely through ESOPs. So they are saying, yeah, you have experience, you're taking the risk, so you are getting what you're getting. We are not looking at that aspect at all. We know that. And youngsters know that for business, profitability is critical. They are saying, if I am going to create value, irrespective of the vintage, how will you ensure that I create wealth? I think that's a very different perspective, and it's a very healthy perspective. So in organizations like us, we create something called long-term incentive plan. Long-term incentive is not long-term like PSU. Yeah, sure, in next 4 years, we start from zero and say, what is the kitty you think we can create, and how do you distribute that? And coming back to Anjan, we are very clear. People who perform, the differentiation is going to be very, very different. I think it's better to be transparent. Yes, if your CEO is earning this much, look at what he is giving back to the organization, to the shareholders and stakeholders. If you can earn, if you can contribute, fair enough.
You have a chance to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think the main point is, will I be taken care of if I contribute?
Absolutely.
That's the key question. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Sandeep, do you have something to share on this? The mic.
So I see very significant trends which are coming out. Even in government now, there is a strong movement towards introducing pay for performance kind of things. You know, whether how much time will take, that only time will tell, but there is a strong realization that this equitable structure of compensation is no longer paying for the business they are in. So there's going to be a significant movement towards pay for performance. As far as our private sector, corporate sector is concerned, you see, there's not much issue around the disparities, because disparities also they correspond to the level of responsibilities and the risks which all the stakeholders are having. So people understand, yeah, if a CEO's salary is around this much, there's so much of disparity, they carry that 10x time of risk also. The whole thing comes around the principles of distribution, which Anjan mentioned. So those principles at times are also compromised. That's where the problems occur. And in my long career, which I have seen right, in my early stages where we were managing industrial relations, the whole problem used to come when we would hide the actual situation with the workers. And people are far too intelligent to know the situation in the company. So the problems used to arise when you try to hide or you try to be inequitable. I mean, you do not try to be fair and honest to people. If workers see that the senior management is thriving away in times of difficulty with all kind of perks and benefits, and only cutting on their incentives, their increments, their benefits, then that is very ridiculous.
So I think disclosing the parameters and also sticking to it when you're making those big decisions, I think that fosters transparency in some way. My last question to the panel, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience members, is fostering creativity and innovation. How does transparency and trust building make every employee give that platform to create something new, so that they feel that even if it's a failure, I will be supported because I'm taking that risk. So that trust that I want to try this because I will be supported even if I fail. How does that translate in the work environment? Yes.
So I'll take that. I think one of the things that HR provides firms is from a design theory. The design theory fundamentally states that if you have a flat organization, your ability or propensity to work autonomously versus a hierarchical structure, I'm not talking extremes here, relative hierarchical structures, fostered you to work with a high risk, high return environment, right? So for example, if you have too many layers, your controls will be high, so you can pass the buck to the next possible layer and therefore inhibit creativity. But in flatter organizations, you will be entrusted with autonomy, which will propel you to do or take decisions on your own, therefore enhancing your creativity, innovations, for want of a better word. But the fact lies that you need to progressively move towards the thing saying that, how do I ensure that my designs or my configurations enhance that level of creativity by making flatter structures? That's one option.
And you were talking this morning about how you have had experiences working in a company that had a lot of layers to the leadership and the flatter structure, and you've experienced this yourself.
That's right. So one of the things you can do is probably broadband jobs. Yeah. So I mean there are innumerable amount of examples across organizations where you tend to say, hey, can I give that person the role which is going beyond what it is doing, and probably broadband jobs. What it does is provides you a fair amount of impetus to motivate that guy. The other way to look at it is, do I look at downgrades and upgrades, keeping the comp and grandfather that person or grandmother the person for a certain time. And these are one of the tricks that you pull out from your sleeves as and when, depends on how the configurations warrants you to do it. But I think the bigger picture is to be able to go a little more nimbler, as all of us are saying, a little more vulnerable. It's fine to be flexible at this point of time.
Okay. I just want to add, the technology has a major role to play in creating the trust. Because if you see the Amazon today, all of us buy something or other than books also buy from Amazon. We place the order in Amazon, and the product comes to our home. There is no salesman involved in between. So there is a direct trust, and we believe in Amazon product, and it comes to us, and if you don't trust, and we return it. It's very easy. So we doubly sure that Amazon products, whatever comes, it's a good product, and we trust Amazon, even if they don't make the product. So similarly, we are in a path of digital transformation in Indian Oil. We have consultant also, and in not only in HR but in business also. So what we are doing with lot of automations and artificial intelligence, we are putting all the informations, and somebody can place, if you buy fuel even, that data goes to our central server in Mumbai. So all information we get. So delayering, the moment more layers are there, communication, because of communications it goes to the various stages, then there may come a mistrust. But if there is no layers of communication, so stages, it should not pass through the stages, so there will be no mistrust. So in case of Amazon, there is no media, no layer, straight away between customer and the supplier. Right. So we are also moving towards that. So in that case, if you delayer, and if you have one-to-one supplier to customer relationship, you have a better communication and more trust. So it happens because of the digital transformation and AI. So same thing we are going to apply, and in HR also, like in recruitment process and in other areas like talent management, we are trying our hands in particularly in digital transformation for bringing more trust and more efficiency.
Fantastic. Sandeep?
Yeah, so in this era of startups today, one thing very amazing is happening is that failure is no longer a bad word. In fact, in US, in Las Vegas, every year there is a conference which happens just to celebrate the failures, and it's called FailCon. And it's a great occasion where people from all over the world, they come and they celebrate their failures. And from those failures come out the success stories. So failure is no longer a dirty word, but how to get up and how to innovate and come out of it with creativity, that is something very, very significant and the future of things to come.
So is there anything specific that is being done at Samsung that fosters this creativity?
Yeah, so in terms of innovation, you see, we are amongst the top 3 innovative companies in the world. So we have a system of technology labs where people are allowed to have their teams in these, they can create a lab and have the teams for that. They're allowed a specific budget for a year. They can try out those innovations. In case they do not succeed, they can go back to their respective functions. If they want to continue further on their ideas, they are allowed to do that and continue with the budgeting, the budgets for taking it forward. So this in turn, you know, helps us in hitting the markets with regularly we come out with our new range of models.
So you're saying there's an option that I'm doing my regular job, but I can pause that for a while, go to the technology lab, try some.
Yeah, it's a very systematic process where people are allowed to take up their ideas and build on that, make teams out of that. And since they have the budgetary support, so you can do a lot of R&D and fund it also. So there is absolutely. And even if you do not succeed, you go back, you are not penalized for any failures in that. So there is complete freedom for...
So any specific product that has come out of this?
In fact, this gear watch was actually the innovation from an Indian engineer. I mean, some of you would be aware about that. That was Pranav Mistry, who created this gear watch. And he is kind of a whiz kid in Samsung itself. So that was
awesome. All right. Shubhankar, I would like to draw this question to you. Is there something at Lenovo that is done on a similar side to foster creativity in particular?
So I run most of the sales part of the organization in the Asia Pacific region. So my focus has always been how do you build a culture where people are able to challenge each other, because the more you start challenging each other, then you bring up insights, information from all parts, top down, bottom up, sideways. That's number one. Number two, what we also try to do to foster innovation and creativity is to get to what Sujata's point was, get the customer's voice through the frontline sales in the organization to the to the leadership, so that it further feeds back into product development. So how can you translate consumer insights back to the product organization, which is the second one. And the third one I would talk about is that, which I already did, which is about how do you dismantle hierarchy and ensure that there is a seamless flow of communication happening.
Very nice. All right. I think we'll open the floor for questions from the audience. I hope you guys have a lot of questions. Yes? Great response, guys. Thanks. So we have 3 people raising the hand. Can we have the mics handed to them? I think we can take 3 questions. So when you ask a question, please name the panelists that you're addressing this question to.
Hello panelists. So my question is directed to Sujata ma'am. It is, why is transparency and trust important to process transformation in an organization, and why it is crucial to do that? Like how trust and transparency comes to this place.
You're saying how is it impacting the business, right?
Yes ma'am. Like why it is crucial to how crucial it is to process transformation in an organization, and why and how trust and transparency come into that place.
How does trust drive transformation? Okay, how does trust drive transformation? Who's your end consumer? The customer, correct? We are existing because of the customer. If I am not listening to him, if I am not understanding to him, I don't exist. For that, I have to ensure I create an atmosphere where I will listen to what my employee, the junior most employee who is servicing my customer, I should be able to create an atmosphere where he can come back and say, this is not working. The product team may have created a great product, they may have positioned it as a great product, but if it is not going to help the end customer, there is no transformation. For example, let's say if the iPhone has come with 8 and 10, and 10 had issues, you're creating it for the customer. But if the guy who's selling it will come back and tell you it's not working, and you don't want to listen to him, what will happen? The employee will keep quiet. The customer will go to Samsung, simple. So you have to ensure that you will listen to the voice. And for that, you have to create that atmosphere. Irrespective of the hierarchy, you are able to listen to the truth. And to listen to the truth, you need courage. You don't need hierarchy there. Yeah?
Can I just add one angle to this very quickly? So the transformation starts with the vision, and it is also very important to ensure that you are able to build a trustful relationship with the employees to share and make them believe the vision of the organization. So every transformation starts with a vision or a mission, and that trustful relationship is very important to drive the entire organization, all stakeholders towards that vision.
You see, today the whole business, when you are in this, if you want to have this competitive edge, it all comes from engagement and motivation of your people. And to create that, you have to have transparency and trust to create that ownership and all. Otherwise, it's fine, employees, if you really do not build up that transparency and trust, it'll be fine with employees because they are getting the salaries and the business is also running. But if you have to beat the competition, you have to walk that extra mile. And that extra mile will come from this engagement only. And to create that engagement, you have to be honest and build trust with your stakeholders, with your people, like she said about the frontliners. It's very important. I've seen some of the most successful MDs are those who actually go to the retail counters, to the front line, who actually meet the customers also, to get a direct hang of what's happening at the ground. Otherwise, sitting in corporate offices, you are completely cut off from the world. And the whole information flow is so filtered across all levels that, I mean, if you do not go out, you will not get the real picture.
Absolutely. I think we had the CEO of PepsiCo, Indra Nooyi, talk about this in one of her interviews, that every month she visits a store or a mall to see how PepsiCo products are placed and how people are engaging with it, and talks to the customers. So, and she says that is more powerful than any report she reads online or what her team gives her. So I think that ensures that there is complete transparency. What's your name, by the way? Jayant. Guys, can we have a round of applause for Jayant, the first person to ask the question? All right, can we have the next person ask the question here?
Yeah, Shubham here. My question is to all panelists. What's the reason of having a difference in the length of the ladder in Indian companies and MNCs? And in relation to this, when trust flows from top to bottom, don't you think that the trust, the value of trust decreases when it reaches to front leaders?
Okay. Can you repeat the first part of the question, please?
What's the reason of having a little longer ladder of hierarchy in Indian companies as compared to the multinational companies?
For the level of hierarchy, ladder.
Take that? I'll try to answer that question. Let us define trust first. Again, incidentally, in the month of June, I met two great people who run two Trust Academy in USA. One is David Horsager and the other one is Richard Faglin. Richard Franklin says that trust has the three elements. One is your competence, second is your compassion, and third is your integrity. These three elements are they makes the trust. So when you talk about hierarchy, these are the actually mindset. There is no senior, junior. These are compartment, physical. You think that a person who is sitting in a big chamber, he is a big man. But trust has no barriers. Trust is something you have to trust first. You cannot demand trust from juniors or your colleagues or your relatives, friends. It is you. You first you have to guide. You have to assure that you trust them. Then only you can get get back. If you feel that everybody should trust me, it is not possible. You have to demonstrate that you trust everyone. Then only they will try to trust you, and you have to demonstrate that. The moment you demonstrate the trust by your actions, and slowly they will believe in you, and the same thing will flow in your friends circle, and it will go down. Same thing happen in the industry. So irrespective of multinational or public sector, the concept is same, and building of trust, the process is same. Now, if you think that seniors only are trustworthy, juniors are not, that is not true. The persons who are working in the field, they are most trustworthy because they are day to day, they are dealing with the customer. They know the customer feedback best, and whatever they give the feedback to the seniors, and seniors trust them because they know the business is whatever volume they get because of these people. And in the hierarchy, they are just transmitting the information. So they are the layers. So it is not, but one thing is important, I agree with you that seniors should display all the time the trust, and they cultivate a culture of trust. Then only the organization will flow. At the same time, if seniors are trustworthy and juniors are not, business will not grow. So entire organization need to have a trustworthy organizations. So we keep on working on this, and we go for survey every year. So there is a institute called Great Place to Work Institute in Mumbai. They conduct basically trust survey. That is, they decide the great place to work based on the trust. There is a two part. One is they do the culture survey, and second is trust survey. So 75% of them is the trust survey questionnaire. So based on the culture of the trust available, prevailing in the organizations, they decide which is the best company to work for. So there are two such organizations. One is Gallup internationally. They also do the similar exercise, and one in India in Great Place to Work. So luckily we are in the best 50 of Great Place to Work. Thank you.
I'll just add, just to answer your question, in terms of organization structure, there is no right or wrong organization structure. So it all depends on the nature of your business, the situation. So the long hierarchy or short hierarchy, but what has been seen is that wherever you need more of innovation, creativity, and collaboration of people, you need to have flatter structures, everybody collaborating together and, bringing ideas and ideating and having ownership for things. Wherever your business processes are such where execution is strongly required and large geographies are involved, their long structures really do help. So companies have thrived both in large layers of structures and also short structures. So it's all very situational as per your business, in which business the organization is, what is the kind of situation, what is the
nature of your business.
Transformation which is happening in terms of the economic uncertainties.
Thank you. All right, we'll take one more question. I want to go to this side of the audience as well. Yes, ma'am. Somebody has the mic already. Okay, you're going without the mic. Go ahead.
Then how a trust is built within the two organizations? And the second question is,
Shall we take the first one first?
Yeah. The first question is, when a global organization acquires a local company, say the acquisition of Flipkart by Walmart, then there is huge culture gap between the two organizations. Then how can we build trust between the two organizations?
Yes.
So couple of things that we keep in mind. One is when you're looking at I would assume if it's an M&A and not a JV, but whichever way, if it's an acquiring of an organization, the first thing they see prima facie is what's the health of the acquisition. Okay, when you say it, so we become highly financially oriented, and the millennials are extremely conscious about what's the health of the company, what is the level of debts, how are they getting funds. So the first thing is to be able to trust that alliance. You need to figure out whether the alliance is sound and healthy. That's point one. The second way to, so it's important for that firm to be extremely transparent outside in the media, wherever they go with stakeholders, saying that, you know what, we've got a clean deal, we've got everything sorted out financially. We believe in this alliance because it builds capability to reach wherever we want to do. The second most important thing is when we do due diligence during the M&A, which is largely championed by HR, one of the parts of the due diligence is to see what's the level of culture misfit or fit, right? If the misfit is a high misfit, it doesn't happen. But if it's largely which can be handled, it is largely handled by the acquiring MD or the CEO constantly communicating to the team and reassuring the vision of the company in total, right? So they don't talk about two separate identities. Then they start talking about the alliance. They're talking about what's the holistic value proposition that you bring to the table and why did we do what we did, right? So a constant communication by the acquiring, largely the big acquires communication is more important, but I guess a joint communication which is periodic, predictable, and being always timely. So that's something which I think really helps in building trust and trust.
See if I can add, I would just ask all of you, if you have listening to me, what is the value of M&A last year in 2017? Sorry? 3.4 trillion. Okay, next question. What percent of M&As are successful? And what percent fail? Don't Google, please. 70 to 90%, 70 to 90% of the M&As are failures. This is a very interesting data point. And it happens because what Anjan said, during the due diligence, it is all financially driven. Why? I'm not in Walmart, I'm not in Flipkart, but how do, so this Amazon is growing in India and China has been already got their own native e-commerce space, so India becomes the last battleground as an example. So it's a financial market strategy driven acquisition. So many a times when we do acquisitions, the due diligence of the people side is not taken into consideration, and that's why, according to an HBR report, 70 to 90% of the M&As fail. So back to your question, culture audit as a part of due diligence is extremely critical. But today, if I say, as a HR leader, we are not culturally fit, don't acquire, I don't think that would get heard very seriously. That's the reality. Even data supports that it failed. We are sinking tons and tons of money into acquiring companies, but we may not actually see the light of the day of its success because we don't do this critical decision based on culture fit.
So if I can just take the liberty of cracking a joke, this may be a cliche which has come over the years. It's an imaginary, so at some point of time, I believe Albert Einstein wanted to propose to Marilyn Monroe. And Marilyn Monroe asked, why should I go along with you? And Einstein's response is that our offspring will have my brains and your beauty. And Marilyn Monroe's response is, what if it's the other way around, right? So in M&As, I think the question is on why, right? What does the other partner bring which I cannot do as well? and how do I let them do that, and how do I get the best of both organizations together. So to move away from the joke, it's about creating a common purpose for customers, a common purpose for that ignites the energy in the employees, and a common purpose that better meets the aspirations of all stakeholders for both entities.
Right. Can we move to the next question, please? You had 2 questions. Do you want to ask the second one?
Okay. Am I allowed to ask a question here?
Where is this for?
Yeah. Okay. This transparency thing I've been hearing, so calling by first names. Now, I have a question, and allow me a little circuitous route. We expect an office to call our boss Samir Sam, but don't go home and call your dad Harry. How does it work in India actually? Doesn't it go along, you're an American in the office and Indian at home? Does it really work in our context? Am I clear? We expect people to call bosses by first names.
Calling your boss by your first
name. Does it really work in India?
Home, you don't do that with your family members. So, did I get
yeah. Does it work in Indian context?
Listen, I think I don't think there is anything right or wrong with cultures, right? I think a better way to look at things is how do you get things best done in any culture, right? I spent 10 years in UK and I'm now in India. My son couldn't get to understand why the sir and the madams are so omnipresent in schools. They're used to calling teachers and each other in things, right? I don't think it's more than whether it works or not. I think there are cultural norms and values that have evolved over a period of time. It is extremely important that people learn to adapt to different environments and get the best out of it, rather than sit on it from a value question on what is appropriate or not appropriate. Right. I don't know whether I've answered your question, but just
you see, I'll add to this a very interesting anecdote. I was working for Xerox, and there was a lady executive director HR. I'm talking of about 14 years back, and very brash and highly active person, and she insisted on being called by first name. So we were all used to calling ma'ams and madams and those kind of things, and she was highly insisting on being called by first name. But old habits die hard, so still I kept calling as ma'am. So she further got upset and got me corrected and got me into that mode. And then the kind of, the level of understanding we developed after that was amazing. I mean, it kind of, the informality in working which it developed was awesome. And today, you talk to any leader would say that, we should profess the culture of first name culture and all, but from inside, everybody feels happy when they are addressed by sir or madam and all. So there is so much of double speak on this, but certainly there are true leaders who mean what they say. So it's basically on your personal choice, personal attitude as to how you want your team to work with you, relate to you, and work together. Definitely, it's a very big trust builder.
So I was actually in Sri Lanka at one of these talks like this, and they have a company there which is like the Flipkart of India. So the founder of that company was telling that he was heading for a very important meeting, and his watchman walks up to him and tells him that your fly is open. And he had started this culture of giving this freedom to everybody in his organization to calling him by his first name and not addressing him by sir. So it gives you the openness to tell what is on your mind without feeling that this person may take it the wrong way. So he said that's the kind of transparency we have built. So I think it's a culture, that there is a culture, but it's up to us what choice we make as the leaders and as new joinees who join the company at the initial stage and adapt to that culture that we work in. We'll take one more question from this side. Somebody had raised their hand. Yes.
Hi, Savin and respected panelists. Thank you for the insightful session. My name is Tutan. I'm a junior faculty of Vinod Gupta School of Management. Regarding trust, I mean, when you're talking about trust in an organization, the building of trust starts, much earlier. I mean, when you recruit a candidate, basically, to see it's like an alliance building. Like it's like a marriage. So normally, say, if I take a comparison with marriage, so when you take a new member to your family, the process starts much earlier. Like you date or the family sees each other. So that is how we, sort of understand the frequency matching, and then only we proceed. But, the existing recruitment process, what do you have? So either we say go for campus recruitment, which is like a one-day process, or, we post open advertisement, which is again like a very short process, or maybe sometimes we go for internship, but that's in a limited extent. So given this context, do you think our recruitment process needs to change, and what the industries are doing for that? Thank you.
So I just take this is one of my favorite topics, where when I look at the global campus hiring process, it is actually the classical dating. But in India, it is speed dating. So in India, campus happens, you go to a business school, in one room, one company is doing, another room, day 0, day 1, day 2, and then in 3 days, the hiring is over. It is, to me, personally, may not be the best way to hire talent. You have to evaluate the talent, and the students also equally need to evaluate the organization they want to step their career in. Very well thought through. There should be a meeting of minds, and very, very careful decision making from both the sides, because there is investment from both the sides. The student is giving the early days of the career to the organization, and so is the organization investing in building up the talent. So to me personally, this is not it's a very broken process what happens right now. But I must tell you that when we run global campus programs across the world, to going to the other cities and universities, the process starts much a year in advance, which enough time is given, multiple rounds of interviews, enough information sharing from both the sides, and then we actually sign up together.
Let me bring in some public sector perspective. When you go to campus, we see the college and we see the faculty, and we know that there is not much difference between the students. One thing we hire for attitude, not for skill, unlike the private sector. Private sector wants the person should be selected and next day they put in the job. They want skilled manpower. But in our case, both IOC, BPC, HPC, ONGC, we keep on interacting. We hire for attitude, and we skill them in the process of onboarding, around 6 months to 1 year. And we believe in them. So we believe in our guts and trust basically. So we don't test their skill, because in 20 minutes time, you cannot measure their skill. We just believe in them. We see their attitude and aptitude and take them.
I'll give you a quick one, and just to add on. 3 things. One of the things, yes, we are doing a lot of work on recruitment to ensure there is a fair amount of connectivity. The other important thing is look at just flip this around and think you've already gone through a selection process from your management institute. You come here, you've done a course which we are familiar with. You come and take the interview by the company that comes and represents itself. The selection process does not necessarily mean that I connect with you for 20 minutes. The very fact that you're in this institute, your institute has taken due diligence to come up. You're from this, so it's actually a lot of data points which precedes us to compel, saying, hey, from this institute, the probability of a fit is a higher fit. It's not that 20 minutes, it's that 2 years association that you have, and we trust the institute that I go, and this is specifically with campuses, right? So it's not that I go to an X versus a Y and spend just 20 minutes. It's not that. It's because you're from this institute. We believe in the curriculum of the institute. We believe in the overall growth of the student, and therefore we spend 20 minutes and pick this up. That's the way I look at it. Second, if you look at data, research suggests that you can figure out through very scientific methods called the BEIs and the CBIs of 7 Holsworth, in 45 minutes flat, the predictability rate of figuring out your attitude can be done. And there is research which suggests that. So it is not that in 45 minutes I will not get anything. I'll probably get a 60%, and I'm willing to hunch that 40%. But the fact being that I can know everything about you in 60%, in 45 minutes with a structured process, highly scientific, which has different semblance. Look at this. I mean, in 2 minutes I can figure out what you can do. I can draw up your Facebook profile and figure out where you are going with your, which pubs are you going. I can figure out your LinkedIn profile to see what books you read. I culminate in 2 minutes I figure out what you will do in the next 20 years. That's AI, right? So 20 minutes is not good enough. It's actually in 2 minutes I'll figure out what you want to do in the next 20 years. So it's changing. And I think 40 minutes, and again, say it to be provocative, I think 40 minutes is actually good time with the backing that you have from an institute standpoint. Yeah.
So it's a lot of data points. It's not actually speed dating as much. So
I have a different point of view, but I think there's a process that can be significantly improved.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the institution that can allow you this kind of an engagement as well. It's not one-sided in some ways.
As much as that is the case, I think I will not, I have both, I can see both perspectives in terms of speed dating versus this is long enough. But I think if I really look out in terms of a lot of students in India, and me included when I went to B school, right, came to B school with placements in mind, right? And I think as much as it's a race for corporates to grab the best of what the school has to churn out, there is a race to land a role, right? And there is phenomenal amount of peer pressure. And there is a phenomenal amount of what's sexy and what's not. What takes a back seat very often is where does my passion, competence, and aspirations meet? Because it's almost seen as a reject not to be placed on day one in a large campus. I think it only points out to the great demand-supply gap that we have in this particular country. Personally, while I would try to get the maximum out of the 40 minutes, and I think we can make it as scientific as possible, I would agree more with my colleague to the right to say that it needs to be a little bit more thought through and extensive on both sides, not just from the corporation's perspective, but from a individual's perspective. Because love at first sight is very romantic, but many times long periods of courtship actually possibly translates into a better relationship.
Absolutely.
I may be wrong.
Yes.
I'll just add here, Suvin. So very interesting question you raised, and as Anjan just said that I mean interview process is not the only thing. So talent acquisition is one area where the digital transformation which is happening in HR is impacting the most. So when you talk of your interview process is shifting to virtual interviews, when you talk of the screening of resumes, which is all powered by AI, and your personality profiling will directly be from your psychometric tools which you are doing, which you are administered. From there to all your interview, AI will give out a report where the accuracy level, as he said, from 60% would significantly move up to maybe about 90 or even more than that. So the best fit would actually be so much digitally compatible with the role and the with the personality of the person. So what we say is horses for the courses. So the whole movement of technology is impacting talent acquisition both in campuses, in lateral hirings, so much that it'll be a completely changed world within 5 years, what I foresee.
Absolutely. I think we've discussed everything here: speed dating, marriage, So this is actually a life-transforming panel discussion for most of you, I would say. And I think it's a very interesting insight that we've received. We'll take one last question and make sure this question is really out of the world, and it's the climax for this entire discussion. So can you, I'll choose the question, okay. Yeah, what's for lunch?
There are many hands actually.
Yes, so where is the mic? You have the mic as well. You don't have to raise your hand there. Oh, there are two mics, okay.
My name is Alka and I'm a law student. First and foremost, the entire discussion was eye-opener for me and especially for all of us. And so I thank you on behalf of all. My question is to Mr. Shubhankar. Sir, what kind of HR practices takes place in Japan, specifically keeping in mind the trust and transparency factor?
Okay. So Japan is a very interesting country. 50% of my business comes from Japan. Out of the $7 billion that we do, 3.5 billion comes from Japan. So firstly, we have acquired two companies. One is NEC Corporation's PC business, and we have a JV with Fujitsu. That's why our business is big. I'll give you some numbers. So Japan, the median age is 47 years. So you have a lot of Gen X and baby boomers. So you don't have the typical millennial population or the Gen Z that we are seeing in many other emerging Asia. So culturally, Japan is very consensus driven. They're very, very hierarchical driven. They would take a lot of process as their first approach, and then they would move ahead. So your question is that what kind of differences in the culture do we think to build trust?
HR processes.
See, in a large multinational company, the practices typically are the same. You do not really customize HR practices based on the country that you operate in. However, what you try to do is to keep the cultural nuances in mind and improve your cultural quotient. So we try to do cross-cultural workshops, both from leaders who work for Japan market and also for the Japanese team who have got managers who are outside of Japan. So that's number one. Number two, what we try to do in Japan is make provisions for policies which impact multiple generations in the society. As an example, if you look at benefits policy in different countries, it is maybe very standardized. But for Japanese, you have people who are very elderly generation who prefer a pension plan as a benefit versus a millennial who may be looking at something like a gym membership. So you offer flexible benefit plans as a practice. That's my second. Thirdly, when you look at Japanese culture, because it is very, very consensus driven, you try to sensitize yourself that and set expectations right, that it would take a little more time, so you ensure that you have given them enough time and buffer to have their alignment within the leadership team before they come back to you. And lastly, I must share with you that because it is extremely hierarchical at times, and many organizations are multinational, you have to do a lot more managerial training, because you have to enable the managers to be a lot more open to feedback, to be unidirectional, and also ensure that they are building a high energy organization rather than having an autocratic kind of managers in the workplace. So these are the many things that we try to do to build a little more unified organization, keeping in mind the cultural nuances that exist in Japan, keeping in mind the demographic differences that exist in Japan.
All right, thank you. I'm going to do her last question. She seems very angry with me for some reason.
So what, according to you, these trust and transparency affect in an organization that helps them to achieve their goals and objectives, other than creating the brand value?
Can you repeat the question?
my question was, trust and transparency has always created a very successful brand. So what all other factors they create in an organization that affect the organization and that helps them to achieve their goals and objectives?
I'll take it.
Yeah.
It's very simple. I think it's a summary of everything that we discussed today. As an example, brand is one of the things. We discussed about, how do we build a collaborative workforce which is less friction. We discussed about speed of decision making, because the moment you have trust, the speed of decision making is much faster. We spoke about high engagement levels in the organization. If you drive higher engagement, if you build a trustful organization, you have a higher level of engagement. You have a happier workforce. So these are many intangible benefits that are possible if you have a trustworthy organization beyond the brand value. Anything?
I just want to add, while building the culture of trust, you build competency in the organization. You have competent people in the organization, and they are very professional in decision making. So once the customer believe that the organization is run by professionals and competent people, they know the product is good. Automatically the product come out, say Apple. The product is always good because people know that the competent people are working on it and the product will be best. So you straight away go and buy. So that competency is built because of the trust factor.
Awesome. So that was the last question. Thank you so much, guys. You've been a very good audience. So big round of applause to yourselves and all our panelists. So personally for me also it was very insightful, and thank you for taking in all the questions and taking turns to answer them. Another round of applause to all our panelists for having the patience to answer all the questions.
That was quite an enthralling deliberation, and I'm sure that each one of us here shall return back a little wiser. Thank you all for delivering such a stupendous discussion. Now, we are at the last leg of the event, and we are indeed privileged to have amongst us Mr. Raheen Bose, Chief Manager and Regional Head Sales of ICICI Bank, Associate Sponsorer of HR Conclave 2018. Mr. Bose has over 10 years of experience in functional areas of retail banking, institutional banking, government banking, strategic business development, as well as relationship management. Managing a portfolio of over 4,500 million rupees, Mr. Bose has been rated amongst the top 5 performers in India. We now request Mr. Raheen Bose to come up on stage and address the inquisitive audience.
Good afternoon to all of you. It's actually a matter of privilege for us to be associated with IIT Kharagpur, and we have been coming to the campus quite often last 2 months, and we are equally delighted to be part of this HR conclave. As a bank, we have grown over the years, and today we are the second largest bank in India and in terms of our lending book, and we have a very sound capital adequacy ratio as well. As I can see, today's theme, which is trust and transparency, in banking, I think the strongest pillars on which the customer and the banker relationship stands is trust, because without it, it doesn't work. And today the only difference between banks is based on a trust and how much transparent you are in terms of all your dealings. Today, if you see across the industry, a bank has to give all declarations in terms of their credit, liquidity, everything. The more a bank is transparent, the more faith the customer builds on the bank. No matter what digital transition we have had over the last few years, still a normal customer today walks to the bank and walks into the branch manager's cabin, or he interacts with the physical officers out there to check his statements, to check his transactions and all. So there is a huge focus on the trust and the faith he still has, apart from the digital avenues which he has access to. So I think it is very, very critical. And being guided by a regulator in terms of transparency, banks have to regularly shell out the reports. And I think what the banks can also do is that they should also give a future trajectory where they are looking at in terms of their products, in terms of innovation, and keep the public and their own customers informed at every step. And I think ICICI Bank has also pioneered that, and we follow a very, very strong ethical and transparency guidelines as such. So I think that is all from our side, and our teams are out there. You can have interactions. We have a lot of products built in specifically for IIT Kharagpur faculty and staff, which is specially designed for premier institutes which we have partnered with. And I think you should take advantage of it. And this is a great, podium for us to be a part of IIT. That's it.
It is widely believed that there is no wealth like knowledge and no poverty like ignorance. Truly, we have covered a whole new chapter on organizational success, thanks to the intellectual treat that we just savored. On behalf of the Vinod Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur, we would like to express our deepest gratitude towards our chief guest, Professor B.N. Singh, for gracing the occasion with his esteemed presence. We had this opportunity to gain priceless insights from our honorable panelists. We sincerely thank you for taking time off your busy schedules for this gathering. We are indebted to our respected Dean, Dr. Prabina Rajiv, and all other members of faculty for their presence and constant support. It would be incomplete without thanking our associate sponsor, ICICI Bank, for their kind association with us and strengthening the bond that they share with this institution. Please accept our deepest regards. Last, but certainly not the least, the HR Conclave 2018 could not have been complete without such a fabulous audience. We genuinely appreciate your participation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a huge round of applause for everyone in attendance today.
We again kindly request our faculties present to come and present the mementos to our esteemed panelists. We first kindly request dear faculty Dr. Biplav Datta to present a memento to Arun Kumar Krishnamurthy.
Now, we would like to invite Professor Sanjeev Chaudhary to honor Mr. Anjan Bhomik with a memento.
Moving forward, we would invite Professor Kunal Ghanti Ghosh to present a memento to Dr. Sujata Sudhindra.
Yeah. We have one more campus show pending.
We would now kindly request Professor Sangeeta Sahani to present a memento to Mr. Sandeep Tyagi.
forward, we would like to invite Professor Ranjan Chaudhary to honor Mr. S.K. Bose with a memento.
We would now like to invite Dr. Swagata Chatterjee to honor Mr. Shubhankar Roy Chaudhary with a memento.
We would now kindly request Professor Ajay Kumar Mishra to present a memento to Mr. Saveen Hegde.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Lastly, we request Professor Praveena Rajiv to present a memento to Mr. Raheen Bose.
I say so. I say so.
As we wind up the day's proceeding, we once again thank you all for glorifying this magnificent Saturday afternoon.
Signing off on an inspired note, we promise to present a newer set of perspectives next year. Have a nice day, ladies and gentlemen.